we'll just wing it, as usual.
Yeah, we usually do that anyway, so.
Yeah. All right, welcome to Films from the Phantom Zone, a podcast about failed and forgotten comic book movies. I am your host, Arnaldo, and with me as always is...
Berto, the other host.
Real quick up top, how we select our failed movies. Rule number 1, it must be a superhero comic book film. Rule number 2, it must be a failed franchise, and we define that as a franchise that's gone out of business, as in they wanted to make more movies, but someone told them no, didn't make any money, you can't do this anymore. Rule number 3, if a film ends on its own terms, without setting up a failed sequel, it passes. So Dark Knight Trilogy is the best example. Wanted to make 3 movies, made 3 movies, at no point did they consider making a 4th one. That is a success, as far as I'm concerned. Anything to add?
No, those rules are pretty clear-cut.
All right, Berto, so today, what movie are we watching?
Kick-Ass 2, the sequel to what we watched last week.
If not obvious, we are going to keep within a franchise until we finish that franchise. We did Kick-Ass last week. There was a sequel. We're doing Kick-Ass 2 this week. When we get to movies like Batman, we're not going to do all 18 Batman movies that have ever existed all at once. We'll do them franchise by franchise. Kick-Ass 2 is not available to stream anywhere. I recommend you rent it. Again, and I've said before, just rent a movie. It's not a big deal. It's a couple bucks. You spend more than $3 just doing literally anything. You step out the front door.
It's about the price of a cup of coffee.
Yeah, like, it kind of irks me when people complain about having to rent a movie. That if it's not available on streaming, then they don't want to watch it. Just rent it. Okay, so being that this is the first time that we've done a proper sequel, because Ghost Rider 2 was sort of Ghost Rider a redo, right?
Yeah.
They said it was connected, but it pretty much was just another...
The only connection was Nick Cage.
Yeah, it was another independent kind of Ghost Rider movie. I thought we should kind of recap where we left off for people that didn't see Kick-Ass. Where did Kick-Ass leave us, Berto?
Kick-Ass left us with Frank D'Amico dead, who was the big bad of that movie, Chris D'Amico's father, who was
played by
Red
Mark
Mist.
Strong.
Yeah, Frank was played by Mark Strong. Chris D'Amico was played by McLovin. I'm just going to call him McLovin because it's easier.
We're going to continue calling him McLovin. Yeah, that thread's carrying over.
Yeah. There's a big showdown at the end of the movie. Kick-Ass kills McLovin's dad with a bazooka, which comes up later in this movie multiple times.
Yeah, so I think the important thing is it's a movie about regular people trying to be superheroes.
Yeah.
Kick-Ass goes out to do it, meets Hit Girl, Chloe Grace Moretz, who is a functioning superhero.
She can actually fight.
Yeah, she's competent.
Yeah.
Red Mist is McLovin.
Who wasn't
at the end
a
of the
real
movie.
Superhero.
Right. It was kind of like a fake superhero as a front. But at the end, it sets him up to be a supervillain because he now blames Kick-Ass for the death of his father. And that's where it leaves us.
Which is fair. He did kill his dad.
Oh, yeah. Did you see this movie in theaters?
I did.
This movie came out in 2013, so it's 3 years after the last one. I think it's technically set 4 years after the last one. And we'll get to that. It's only because they call Hit Girl 15, and in the last one she was 11.
Yeah,
so
and she's like starting high school.
She's a 9th grader. I think that was kind of, they wanted to put her in the same school and kind of get her in high school.
So there's more interactions there.
Right. I didn't see this in theaters. I don't know why, because we talked about this last week. I really, really enjoyed Kick-Ass. I saw Kick-Ass 1 in theaters. For whatever reason, I don't know why I didn't go see this. I remember the trailers. I remember Jim Carrey's in this one. That was heavily marketed. Probably because he was the biggest name out of all these cast members.
He was.
And I think part of the reason is, like we said last week, only real big name in Kick-Ass was Nicolas Cage. They kill him off. So I think what they're thinking is, we got to get butts and seats, got to get a big name, and they go get Jim Carrey.
Right, because just like with the first movie, like this one, 90% of the cast is just like no names, because by the time the sequel has come out, they still haven't quite established themselves as actors. Even like Kick-Ass, Aaron Taylor Johnson. I don't think he had done Godzilla yet, and he hadn't done Avengers yet, even at this
2014.
point.
2014. Those movies were 2014, yeah. He's going to be in, we said it last week, I think. He's going to be in King's Man.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the plot. Do you remember how this movie starts?
It starts off with actually a callback to the first movie, back to the scene where Big Daddy was training Hit Girl with the guns, like how it feels to get shot.
Yeah, Hit Girl is training
Dave,
yes, take a shot in the chest.
Yeah, and he's kind of being a bitch about it, which I say that, but I mean, no sane person wants to get shot.
I would never let someone shoot me.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if I was a cop and that was part of the police training, I don't know if they get shot while wearing the bulletproof vest. If that's something that they do, I'm sure it's in a controlled environment with professionals that aren't going to, like, cough and miss, and maybe you get shot in the arm or the face.
Yeah,
or
not a 15-year-old girl just shooting you.
So that happens, and then they do a time skip, because then they go 6 months earlier, right?
6 months earlier, and then they just kind of show like him in school. He wasn't kick-ass anymore at the time, but you start seeing like other heroes coming out on the news because he inspired people to actually go out and fight crime.
Right, and that's when we meet some of the kind of side characters that we come back later on in the movie.
Yeah.
Some of those names were pretty funny. You had
Dr. Gravity, Remembering Tommy.
Yeah, we meet them later, but Remembering Tommy, he's just this couple who lost their son to a crime. And so now that's their kind of origin as to why they go out and fight crime. But
they're in they're wearing matching outfits. It's very wholesome.
Yeah, they're wearing like tracksuits, like a imprinted T-shirt of his face.
Yeah,
and like fanny packs. They look like they're going to a soccer game.
And masks, of course, because they're superheroes.
They have? Oh yeah, they have some strange masks on. Yeah. So then it cuts to Chris D'Amico, I think. Yeah. We get to see him in his mansion, which is arguing with his mom.
Yeah, and it's like a different home than they were in the first movie.
Yeah,
so
they explained that they moved out to Long Island because they were living in New York City.
And you see him now, he's dressed like all edgy, kind of like how I dressed in high school, black clothes.
Yeah, he looks like he finished puberty too. He doesn't look like McLovin anymore at this point.
No, he's got some patchy facial hair.
Yeah.
Which it seems like they made it a point to make it look patchy. Like he's trying to grow it in.
I think that's probably him too.
It could be.
I feel like if I were to Google him right now, I'm not going to see a beautiful beard. So we see his mom, who was in the last movie. God help me if it's the same actress. It doesn't matter.
I don't think it is, but it doesn't really matter.
She didn't have a speaking role in the last film. In this one, she's just your kind of stereotypical rich wife bimbo, right?
Yeah, and she's an alcoholic now.
Yeah.
Like, obviously things went downhill for this family after their dad died.
After their dad dies, yeah. So they get into an argument because she doesn't let him go out or whatever. We meet, what is his role?
Is he a bodyguard? Because he's got a gun and everything.
Yeah, I think he was Frank D'Amico's right-hand do-it man, who just wasn't shown in the last movie.
Yeah.
Just kind of like a right-hand man for personal affairs.
Yeah.
Keeps close to the house or whatever. And so his basic job now is to kind of watch over Chris. And he's played by
Luigi from the Mario movie?
Well, yes, but his name is Javier in the movie, and he's played by
John
Leguizamo.
Yes.
Puerto Rican actor and comedian. That guy's awesome. I love John Leguizamo.
I love him in everything I see him in.
Oh, he's awesome. And he has a stand-up special.
At this point, Chris's mom gets in the tanning bed. He's pissed off at her because she won't let him go out. He starts kicking the tanning bed, and he says, I wish you were dead. He killed her.
Yeah, the whole thing, explodes.
Yeah.
What a terrible tanning bed if that was actually what was happening. It starts, smoking, zapping, and then I guess it just went on full blast, and she gets, cooked.
And then he just stares at it in horror, and he just goes, Mommy?
Yeah, so his name's Luigi, right? No, that's Luigi from fucking Mario. God, what's his name? Javier. Anyway, he becomes kind of like his parent now. He's like his guardian, but not really. Meanwhile, Dave, because remember, this is a flashback or whatever, Dave has admitted that he's not been kick-ass, even though he inspired all these other people to become superheroes.
And he kind of wants to get back into that life.
Yeah. He's in high school still. He's a senior. I want to know, how are the other people not dying out there? Because the whole point of the first movie is they show the first time Dave goes out to fight crime, he immediately gets stabbed and run over by a car, ends up in the hospital. And these other guys are just out doing their thing or whatever.
Yeah, and they haven't had any training or anything. I think they're mostly just doing community service type things though.
Yeah. Helping people, and they say helping old ladies cross the street.
Yeah, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man type things.
Yeah. So Mindy, who we last saw as Hit Girl, she's still doing Hit Girl, but she lives with Marcus now, her new guardian, who actually raised her from birth to age 5. She goes back with Nicolas Cage's character, Big Daddy, from 5 to 11, learns to become a superhero, learns to be Hit Girl, is kind of robbed of her childhood. That's kind of the theme of the last movie, right?
Yeah.
But now she's being raised by Marcus, who is a pretty straightforward police detective, and he wants to raise her like a normal girl.
Yeah, he wants her to go to high school. He wants her to date, have a normal childhood.
Right. So she's in school, and she's in 9th grade now, so she and Dave go to the same high school now.
Yeah, I'm assuming Dave's a senior.
Dave must be a senior, and I think that's why they did that kind of gap. They wanted them to be in the same school together, and they wanted her to be high school aged also.
Yeah.
So Dave and her meet up, and he's like, hey, you need to train me. I really want to be a good superhero.
Yeah, and he says he wants to team up with her and stuff. And they're having this conversation in the back of a taxi cab. while the guy's driving him.
Yeah, because Hit Girl is sneaking out of school every day. Basically, she gets dropped off at school, then catches a taxi cab. She hacked into the school computer systems to give herself perfect attendance.
Yeah.
Which I thought was funny. Like, no one's noticing or whatever. Like, I don't know about you, and my high school was really small. Everybody knew who I was. It's a consequence of, like, living in a small town.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
Well, there's a high school in New York City, though, so...
Yeah, sure, yeah, I guess. So she's getting in the taxi cab every day and then going off to do, like, superhero stuff. He convinces her, like, hey, you need to train me or whatever. She was like, fine, like, get in the cab. And so he's skipping school now, too. Is that when we do the training montage?
Yeah, then we get the training montage, and then we kind of get back to where we started the movie.
Yeah, training montage was fun. She's teaching Kick-Ass everything that Big Daddy taught her. They're fighting, whatever.
They're
in,
drinking
like,
hot chocolate together.
Yeah, that was super cute. To call back to the end of the last movie where Big Daddy and her were going to split some hot chocolate, but then they had to go, be superheroes, and then he dies. And so she gets back home, hot chocolate's sitting there, and he doesn't get to drink it anymore, right? So I thought that was fun. There's also pictures of Nick Cage up on, like, their personal, like, hideout, their little dojo or whatever.
His character's dead, but his presence is still very much felt in this movie.
Something else I really like, I thought was super comic booky. His costume is hung up in, like, a glass case. Very much like, hey, here's, like, a previous hero, or here's my old suit. It's just kind of on display in my lair, like the Batcave.
Yeah, and, like, to Hit Girl, it's more of, like, an inspiration.
Yeah.
And a reminder of the promise that she made to her dad. That ends up kind of being a theme throughout this movie, is, like, keeping your word, having integrity.
Yeah, for sure, especially with your parents. And we'll get to that later. We'll talk about themes. Something I do like about this film, it continues the themes of the previous movie, which is about parental kind of influences and your level of involvement as a parent, whereas this has kind of evolved into, well, now also, what's the role of the child? You have to respect the word of your parent in order for their parenting to work. Like, you have to listen to them. You can, like, respect their wishes.
And if you don't do that, then there's going to be consequences.
Right.
We already had some consequences where Chris accidentally killed his mom.
Yeah. Oh, I missed that one. And that's kind of the same kind of point. Like, he is rebelling, and now he's facing all the consequences of not listening to his parent, even though she fucking sucks.
Right. And he's trying to be his own man, and it's
exactly.
We'll see. Like, it doesn't work out.
Right. We'll get to that. So something I thought was interesting during that training montage, which is also another theme they're setting up in this movie, is Mindy tells him, I'm not Mindy, I'm Hit Girl. Mindy is the mask I wear. It's not the other way around.
Right. And then she kind of imprints that into Dave as well, where she's, like, trying to teach him that, like, Kick-Ass is who you are, Dave is the mask.
Exactly. And that is a very, very Batman theme. Batman more than any other character. I was thinking about this the other day. Whenever I read a Batman story, or, you watch one on TV or the movies, that's the major theme that they're pushing, is this dual identity crisis that Batman has, where he does not see himself as Bruce Wayne. Ever since his parents died, ceased to be Bruce Wayne and has been Batman.
Bruce Wayne is his alter ego.
Yeah, Bruce Wayne is the mask. When he's being Bruce Wayne, that's when he's acting and pretending. His real self is Batman. And that can be problematic sometimes, but no other superhero really has an identity crisis like Batman does, I feel. Characters like Superman, he's just Superman. You know what I mean? Like, that is who he is. And he has an identity crisis early on, like when he's young, when he doesn't know if he's a human or he's an alien, and he doesn't know if his parents are his real parents, and how to treat the Kents, and how to, like, learn to be just a normal kid and be Superman at the same time, like, with those powers. But by the time he's an adult, usually, in Superman stories, he's kind of figured that out. And he's very much at peace with the fact that he is a Kryptonian, but he identifies as Clark Kent. He just keeps that a secret. It's not a dual identity crisis he's having.
Yeah, he's not having a crisis of any sort. He's just trying to not let the whole world know who he is.
Exactly. And I think Spider-Man is the same deal. Because throughout this movie and throughout Kick-Ass, the main superheroes that they're comparing our characters to are Batman, Spider-Man, and Superman. And I think it's because they're the most popular ones.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody knows who these characters are. But also because they're easy to understand. If you were to make a Flash reference, not everyone's going to catch it.
No.
But you talk about Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, everyone will, right? So I like that because Big Daddy is sort of supposed to be as a Batman character. Mindy is also kind of having the same issues that Batman would have, which is this identity crisis of, like, who am I? I'm not a girl. I'm Hit Girl. Yeah. My life's purpose is to fight crime, not to be a high school girl.
And that was all put onto her by her father.
Exactly. And so cut back to McLovin. He was formerly known as Red Mist.
He's going through his mom's old stuff.
Yeah, post-funeral, not Luigi.
You're going to keep calling him Luigi?
Javier walks in on him, like, going through his mom's stuff, and he's put on, like, her BDSM outfit.
Yeah.
It's, like, all, like, shiny black leather and zippers. And it's like a hole for the mouth.
He looks like a leather daddy.
Yeah.
He's got like his dad's...
What does Javier say? He's like, you don't need to be going through that. Like,
and he like calls him Chris, and he's like, that's not my name anymore. And he's like, oh, sorry, Red Mist. And he's like, no, Red Mist was my superhero name. Henceforth, I'll be known as the motherfucker. That's his villain name, the motherfucker.
Yeah, the motherfucker. To which Javier objects. He's like, that's a terrible name. I'm not calling you that. But he's already like, no, like, that's my name. I'm the motherfucker. And it's funny because he's literally wearing the clothes that his mom got fucked in, right?
Yeah.
So part of their training, Hit Girl buys him an outfit to wear, and it's like a super stereotypical pimp outfit.
Yeah.
It's like a big white jacket, big white hat, big shoes, pants, and he's wearing
really funny to see.
a fur coat, knowing that if he walks out wearing that,
it's going to attract attention.
Yeah, you have to walk from point A to point B wearing this.
And this is where she informs him that, like, Dave is the mask and Kick-Ass is who he is, because he mentioned something about, like, he wishes he had his gear on him.
Yeah, the gear's not important, right?
You're Kick-Ass.
Right. And so, obviously, he gets attacked, like, right away by some thugs.
Yeah, they follow him into an alley. They start saying a lot of homophobic stuff.
Of course. And so he starts trying to fight them using his new skills. Part of me at this point, by the way, was I meant to like turn to you, or at least I wrote down, I was like, is this movie worse off by making Kick-Ass a good fighter? Because I was assuming that was the direction. This is my first time watching this movie.
Right.
So that's where I assumed this was going to go.
Well, and like, he starts off the fight really well.
Yeah, but then he starts getting his ass kicked again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ass kicked.
Ass.
Yeah, no, he gets his ass kicked pretty quick. He's on the ground. They're just kicking him, right? And then Hit Girl comes, saves the day.
Kills, like, all of them.
Kills most of them.
Yeah.
Well, some of them I think she left alive. One guy was like, she was like...
Like, if you promise to give up your life a crime, like, I won't cut your hand off. And he promises, but then immediately reaches for a knife.
Yeah.
She cuts his hand off like she said she would, and then she just looks at him and goes, pants on fire.
Oh, yeah. And she turns to Dave. She's like, what'd you think? And he's like... I'm like dying. And he's like, no, what'd you think of like my one-liner that I said? Yeah. Pants on fire. It was good, right?
And
I'm working on it.
Yeah, she said she had like a bunch of them written down and stuff. She's trying to be more of like a comic booky superhero with like the quips and stuff.
Right. Because let's remind everybody, this is supposed to be a parody / deconstruction on the superhero story, right? Like superhero movies.
Right.
So off, they'll have like a cheesy one-liner to throw in at the end of a fight or something.
Yeah.
At this point...
the cops show up.
Yeah, so the cops are showing up. She's got this crazy motorcycle she's driving around or whatever. She gets on, and the cops, like, spot her or something.
And Marcus hears on the radio a description of Mindy.
Right. So he immediately calls Mindy, and is like, well, since you answered your phone, I know you're not at school. He's a good dad. Like, he knows.
He knows exactly what's going on.
He's also a detective, so he's pretty smart.
She makes up a story about how she was sick and they sent her home. And he's like, all right, well, I'm on my way home now.
I'll see you there.
I'll see you there.
And they both start racing, basically.
They're both...
Fun little chase sequence,
yeah. They're both racing home. She's on her motorcycle. He turns on his siren and starts speeding home.
Right. Total abuse of power. But she jumps in through, like, her window, takes her wig off. Her costume's still on, though. Gets in bed as he runs up the stairs and finds her in bed. Feels her head, and he's like, oh, like, you're all hot and clammy. Obviously, she's sweating a lot from, fighting and running up there or whatever.
And sprinting. She, like, turns her head, and you see blood, a little bit of blood there.
Yeah, so he rips the covers off her to expose her in her suit.
Beforehand, we didn't mention this, but, like, Marcus already knew that Mindy had cut class because he saw her get in the cab with Dave earlier. And then she made up a story, and he was like, well, I got a call where you were supposed to get an award for perfect attendance, and you weren't there.
But you didn't show up,
So she's already kind of in trouble with Marcus.
Her plan is kind of falling apart. So they have a talk. She tries to tell him that, like, no, like, I'm Hit Girl. I need to be fighting crime.
And he's like, you need to be a regular child.
You need to be in school. You need to be a regular kid.
He makes her promise that she'll give up being Hit Girl, which she does. She makes the promise to him. She
says something along the lines of, this isn't like my dad's dream or whatever. This is what we were supposed to be doing together. And Marcus reminds her, no, your dad said, listen to me.
Yeah, because he left a note.
He left you to me, and that's what his dying wish was.
Right.
And I don't want you to be Hit Girl. And if you want to respect his dying wish, you need to respect me. And that's what changes her mind to stop being Hit Girl.
And then she makes the promise to Marcus the same way that she made the promise to her dad, where she says, like, cross my heart and hope to die. Like,
she's serious. No, she takes it very seriously. I was kind of impressed at how this movie took that direction.
Yeah, like
you're
most
gonna
of the movie,
write-
she's not hit girl.
Yeah, exactly. It reminded me of like Justice League stories because for a compelling Justice League story, you kind of have to write Superman out of it. Because Superman is so one-sidedly more powerful than the rest of the Justice League members. You know,
Yeah.
they're not an even team at all.
There needs to be a reason for him to not be Superman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, and this is true not just in like, you know, the movie that came out a few years back, but in Justice League comic books and a lot of like the cartoon or whatever, a lot of times they have to write Superman out of it in order for it to be interesting, you know?
Yeah.
And so I thought it was such a clever move to sort of write Hit Girl, who is the only competent superhero at all, out of this, because she can kind of get herself out of anything.
Right.
We need to make the story interesting for Kick-Ass and all these other idiots.
Well,
that
yeah,
we
because
meet.
if she was involved, there probably wouldn't be a plot. Honestly, she would
Exactly,
have shut that shit down immediately.
Right. And so she makes this promise to Marcus, decides to like go to school basically, and she starts going to school, right?
Yeah.
So I think now we cut back to motherfucker. Yeah.
He goes to a convenience store and he's trying to like go viral. He walks into the convenience store. It's the Asian guy at the register, and he goes,
he has a
"Hands
new-
up, spring roll."
He's kind of racist in this movie, and
very racist
They
in this
play it off really well because here's how you do like racist humor or like any kind of bad humor. Because I truly believe anything can be funny. Anything.
No, I agree.
If you do it right, right? Not everybody can do
I
that.
absolutely agree
And
with
so there's a lot of racist humor in this by the motherfucker, by McLovin.
that. Right.
But you've got Javier going like, you can't do that. You can't say that. And he's
Yeah.
also like a gangster, and he's like, this is kind of like a
Yeah,
racist
like
stereotype.
he's also a bad guy, and he's like, you can't be like saying this to
Yeah.
people. You can't,
And so I think they handle that super well and makes it funny.
and it makes the motherfucker look like a motherfucker.
And he's Puerto Rican, and I think he's supposed to be, he's still Hispanic in like his character. His name's Javier.
His name's Javier. Yeah.
So, right. So he's in the convenience store. He has a new outfit. It's much more like high budget. It's not a straight BDSM.
but it's still very
It's
much
very-
inspired by it.
Yeah.
But he walks in, he threatens the cashier, he says a bunch of racist things to him.
Right.
And then he says, like, where are your security cameras? And the cashier's like, we don't have any, they're too expensive. And
He's
then
like, are you fucking serious, man? I want to go viral.
And he's like, you want to be recorded? And then an old man walks in. And he's like, what's going on in here? And he points the gun at the old man. And he's like, get down your knees, Gandalf.
And the old man calls him out for his bad, like, gun form.
Yeah, he's like, the only thing that's going to get, like, knocked down or whatever is you when that gun kicks back and hits you in the face.
And so he shoots something.
And the gun hits him
Because
in
he's
the
holding the
face.
gun like an idiot. And it
Yeah.
hits him in the face. He gets pissed. And then he, like, unloads on, like, the refrigerator section.
Yeah, he shoots up all the drinks and screams and then runs out of the convenience store and into the car. He's like, we gotta go. And he's like, I feel so alive.
Yeah.
That was his, like, big evil act.
Right.
At this point, yeah, this is where he tells Javier, he's like, I need to find somebody to, like, train me to beat up Kick-Ass. He's like, get, like, a Chuck Liddell type person.
So, right. So we cut to their, like, boxing ring, like a gym. And they literally brought Chuck Liddell. And he's there trying to train him in, like, boxing and fighting or whatever. Obviously, he's horrible at it. He loses his first match, like, right away. Like a sparring match against the guy from Get Out.
He was the guy from Get Out. He was in Black Panther.
Yeah. His name is...
I don't remember the actor's name.
He's a good actor.
Yeah.
Daniel Kaluuya.
Kaluuya.
Daniel Kaluuya. He basically gets beat up, and then he realizes, you know what? Fuck all y'all.
Yeah, he's like, my superpower is that I'm rich as shit.
And he points at Daniel Kaluuya's character, and he's like, you want to beat up people for me and get paid?
And he's like, okay. And then he's like, all right, I need to give you a supervillain name. He calls him Black Death.
Yeah. And he's like, well, do you really want, let's go with the racial stereotype. You can't say that. And he's like, no, that's his name.
No,
It's
that's
Black
his name.
Death.
I guess we're going to call him Black Death from now because that's his name. And he just
Right.
casually walks away. He's like, whatever, I got my money.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
Yeah,
he, got paid. He wants to make
He didn't give
money.
a shit.
What does he say to
the
Chuck Liddell?
motherfucker offers everybody else, anybody want to fight for me, I promise to pay more cash than Chuck Little Dick Liddell. And then Chuck Liddell gets pissed off. He's like, what'd you say? And then
Javier has to kind of like
called him
calm him
Luigi.
down. Yeah, I really want to. And,
Javier comes in
John
and calms him
Leguizamo,
down. He's like,
yeah,
hey,
Javier's like calming
he doesn't
him
know
down.
what he's saying. He just got hit in the head.
yeah.
But, like, while all this is happening, we find out that Kick-Ass tried to talk to Mindy about joining...
It's like a superhero team that he
he
saw.
read about.
Yeah, and they call themselves... Here, I got
Justice Forever. Because all of this is, like, happening at the same time. It's, like,
yeah,
cutting
it kinda
between
cuts
the
them
two.
back. Yeah, they call themselves Justice Forever.
Dave tries to get Mindy to get on board with that, and she says that she made a promise. She's done.
Yeah.
Dave's
finally lets him down.
girlfriend.
They're doing this in the middle of the halls, which is not
Yeah.
smart or whatever.
No.
Dave's kind of like going after her or whatever, and Dave's girlfriend sees this and assumes that he's like has a thing with her.
Everybody kind of assumed it because it sounded like a breakup, to be fair.
Right. And she's like, did you just get dumped by a ninth grader? Well, I guess you're getting dumped by me too. And he tries to kind of explain, like, oh no, like
no, it's a kick-ass thing.
yeah, because remember, she knows he's kick-ass, exactly, from the last movie. And she goes off, and it's one of those things where this happens a lot, where it's just a simple misunderstanding, but the movie overly plays it.
Right.
And it's, for me, when they do stuff like that...
This was like the dumbest scene in the movie, I thought.
Well, no, I think it's actually kind of smart, because when you do that, what I was saying, usually it can just be solved by one person calling the other person and being like, hey, here's the misunderstanding, and then the problem is solved.
Right.
But movies will play that for a huge effect, right? Mm-hmm. It'll be this whole plot device. But what she says, she goes, oh, well, so-and-so's got a bigger dick than you do.
Well, that's why I thought it was dumb. It just seemed like a way to write Katie out of the movie, though.
Yes, because there's no time for Katie in this movie.
Yeah.
So they need to write her off in a way that shuts that door and doesn't go, but wait, can we just talk for a second? Because if you give me 2 seconds to explain, the problem's solved.
Right.
By her saying that, oh, I've been cheating on you too, now he's like, well, fuck this. Like, I don't want to be a part of this anymore either.
But at the same time, I kind of felt like it did a disservice to her character. Not that she had much characterization to begin with.
Did you really like her in the last movie?
No.
Like, she's fine.
She's fine. She's
Yeah,
fine.
she's
but
a one-dimensional character. You're not supposed to like be attached to her in any way.
And I guess that's why they did the scene, but I also thought it was one of the weaker scenes in the movie where it's just like,
Okay,
oh, she's a bitch, he's an idiot.
Yeah. I mean, and at the time, I was feeling, I'm like, well, maybe they need to work it out or whatever, but then later in the movie, I'm like, no, there was no time to have a love triangle in this. There's a lot of other stuff going on.
I get why they did it.
It's fine, write her out, and she doesn't need to be in this. So at the same time, motherfucker's trying to put his team together.
Yeah.
And so John Leguizamo, Javier, has all these names of people to be on a team, like good fighters, people that bring different things to the table, or whatever.
And he talks about their background, what they were.
And their expertise or whatever. And so motherfucker's like, McLovin's like giving them all fucking names. There's Black Death already. Javier shows him like this Russian lady.
Former KGB.
Right, super competent. The only other competent person in this whole movie.
Yeah.
Super badass. Motherfucker's like, all right, we're going to call her...
Mother Russia.
Yeah, Mother Russia.
And then he's like, you can't be Motherfucker and have someone named Mother Russia on the same team.
Too many mothers.
It doesn't work.
And he's like, fuck you, no, she's Mother Russia. I think it's so clever because he's naming all these names and Javier's like, that's a racial stereotype.
Yeah.
This is repetitive. Like, he's giving him feedback.
It's almost like he's the audience giving, like, commentary on it.
Because this happens in regular comic books where there are racial stereotypes in names.
Especially in, like, the Silver and Golden Age of comics, yeah.
There's a ton of black characters whose names are Black whatever.
Yeah.
You know, there's...
Black Lightning.
There's Black Lightning. There's Black Panther. And that one is written well enough that you can forgive it because it's literally based on Black Panthers and they're very kind of like empowered by that.
But you can also tell where that started from, though. Too.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And he's kind of like, well, you know, whatever.
Yeah, because where were the other names? There was an ex-Triad member that he called Genghis Carnage.
Yeah. Genghis Carnage. Because he's Asian. That's why he named him that.
Yeah.
Black Death.
The Tumor, which was just a little guy that kills people. So he's like, small and a killer, the Tumor.
Yeah,
he's not very, like, imaginative with
name.
These.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got Mother Russia, Black Death, the Tumor, and Genghis Carnage.
Yeah. I think it was like just that team of 4. So meanwhile, we also get Mindy's subplot where Mark is setting her up on like a girl's sleepover.
Night.
I don't know what the relationship was. I think maybe it's a coworker's daughter or something.
Yeah, because he says something along the lines of like she's really nice. Spoiler, she's not nice.
No.
She's like the head bitch of the school.
Right, for her subplot. Her subplot turns into Mean Girls.
Yeah, and
I think that's something that this movie, a lot of people hated.
I wasn't a fan of that personally.
I love it. I thought it was great because it falls into that theme of identity crisis, right? She is convinced that she is Hit Girl and Mindy is just a cover-up.
Right.
And so now she has to learn to be Mindy. And at first she's like, well, I guess this is fine. But then she realizes she has no idea how to be a girl.
That's true.
You know? And so I thought this whole Mean Girl subplot was totally appropriate for that theme. So it gets introduced to these girls at a sleepover, and they are the mean girls of the school. Like, they're the most popular. They're doing all the things that mean girls do, like in the movie Mean Girls. Think of that movie for a second. That's basically the subplot, right? And in that first scene, they're like immediately talking about boys.
Yeah, and Mindy has never talked about that before or even thought about it.
Yeah, and I think that right there cements what Marcus was talking about, where he's like, no, you were robbed of a childhood. You need to learn to be a teenager. Because up to this point, she went through puberty, but never considered, like, her sexuality.
No.
She had never thought of a boy like that.
Yeah, and that's when they show her, like, the boy band video where she kind of has, like, a sexual awakening almost.
Yeah, she has, like, this reckoning or whatever, which is so stupid.
Her only reaction to it is, like, what the fuck was that?
Right. And this is kind of like one of those, like, men writing women situations, but it was also kind of funny.
No, it was definitely done in, like, a humorous way.
Yeah, it was definitely sarcastic, where they're like, oh, you know how you feel down there when you see this guy in this music video and he's showing his abs? And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And they put on the video, she starts getting like hot and bothered, and it's like the stupidest
and she's
music
like,
video.
Afterwards, she's like, what the fuck was that? And then one of the other girls was like, I know, I'm soaked.
That's definitely a men writing women situation, but I thought it was sarcastic enough to work. Yeah, it was pretty funny. You told me that that's a real boy band, right?
Yeah, I looked into it. Apparently that was a real band. What were they called? J something? It's not that important.
Well,
but they have a music video on YouTube and everything. Union J.
Yeah, apparently they're called Union J.
They have a Twitter and they have a little check mark.
Yeah, I don't think they're super popular, but they're real.
They're real.
So there you go.
They're real. The song wasn't bad, though. That's the thing. It had a catchy tune to it.
I remember it just being kind of like every...
Oh, it's like every other boy band song.
Boy band song, yeah, whatever. So she spends the night or whatever. They're having a slumber party. The rest isn't important. So the rest of her kind of subplot goes that she goes to school, and one of the girls, I think she's like the queen bee or whatever, is like, oh, like you should join cheerleading. I'm not very good. She even admits that she's like not good.
But she has connections with the coach.
Yeah. So, and like my mom or whatever got me in the team. Mm-hmm. So you should go to tryouts. I'll put in a good word for you or whatever. So she's in her cheerleading tryouts.
It was dance team.
It might have been dance team, yeah, whatever. So she's like, obviously has never danced in her life.
But like when she tries out, she's kind of put on the spot and she just imagines that she's fighting a room full of bad guys.
Yeah, I love that scene. She doesn't know how to do anything basically other than be hit girl. Mm-hmm. And so she has to do this tryout routine in the middle of the gymnasium. There's a bunch of people watching, and so she's like, okay, well, I'm gonna do the only thing I can do. This is intercut with like her as hit girl in the gym fighting ninjas. Yeah, because she's just imagining ninjas around her.
She's doing like flips and punches,
so she's like
and
punching,
stuff.
doing flips, and she's beating up all these kind of like imaginary guys.
Needless to say, impresses the shit out of everyone.
Yeah, because she's incredibly acrobatic, obviously.
And then
everyone's like super impressed, and at that point they zoom in on the queen bee girl.
And she's pissed.
And she's just like, how dare you actually be better than me at something.
Yeah, like,
even though she admitted that she wasn't good at dance.
And she wasn't. When they showed her, she was just doing like a generic slutty dance to a song about popping your pussy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. Yeah, it was like
high school.
This was a fictional song, I'm pretty sure, right?
I have no idea.
I don't know if it was real, but yeah, in the song they're like popping pussy and stroking cock.
It was probably a real song.
It was very, very perverse. But imagine like wet ass pussy, like that song. It was basically like the fake version of that, which I think is funny because now it's like that's a real song now.
It's very popular too.
Yeah. So she feels kind of betrayed or whatever. Meanwhile, Kick-Ass is joining, like we were saying, Justice Now?
Justice Forever?
Justice Forever, thank you.
But first he meets up with Dr. Gravity, who he finds on Facebook.
Yeah, right, okay.
He finds him on Facebook, he messages him, they meet up, and then they're just kind of doing a patrol together.
Yeah,
and
it's Turk from Scrubs.
It is Turk from Scrub.
Yeah, it's Turk, and he's just being Turk, which I thought was awesome, too.
And he talks about how, like, you can be anybody you want to be when you're a superhero.
Yeah, his superpower-ish, or whatever his shtick is that
he's a physics professor that created a anti-gravity stick, but really it's a baseball bat wrapped in tinfoil, as he puts it.
Yeah.
And then he says he's not even a real physics professor.
Yeah. He's like, oh, that's the greatest thing. You can do whatever you want. You can be whoever you want to be.
All this while he, like, just walks up to a hot dog stand. He's like, can I have a Diet Mountain Dew, please?
Yeah. No, that was
So
awesome.
they're just being regular guys, just, like, going on patrol.
But all these people, I think their connecting thread is that all of them say that they were inspired by Kick-Ass.
Yeah. He was the inspiration for all of them. He
Exactly.
was the first one to actually go out in public and do this.
Right.
Like, Big Daddy and Hit Girl were doing this, but they weren't public about it.
No, they were very stealthy because they were good.
They were smart.
Yeah, they're smart, yeah. So he takes him to join the Justice Forever group.
Yeah.
And so they're in a basement, basically, with a bunch of other idiots, right?
Yeah, a
And
bunch of other idiots. We meet...
Remembering Tommy.
We meet Remembering Tommy, which is the
couple.
The nice couple. We meet Insect Man.
Insect Man. He's like, what was his background?
He was just a kid that got bullied for being gay, so he wants to stand up for people that can't defend themselves. And he doesn't wear a mask because he says, quote, it was too much like being back in the closet.
He said, I've been wearing a mask my whole life or whatever.
Basically,
Which, you know what? To this movie's credit, is another kind of play at the whole theme of what's your identity like? Are you...
Yeah, who are you really?
Yeah, are you the superhero and you pretend to be the normal person, or are you the normal person and you pretend to be the superhero? Like, which alter ego is you? And at least they gave us a real life example by having like a gay person who's like, I was pretending to be someone I'm not my whole life.
Now he's just being himself.
Yeah, this is who I am, and I'm never going to do that again, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was nice. But
it was nice. And then we also meet Night Bitch,
who's just like this girl. That's it.
Her sister got like murdered, so she's like, I want to be a hero. And then we also meet
what is he
Battle Guy?
Battle Guy. And he's basically dressed as like a cheap cosplay of like Captain America.
Yeah, he's even got like, I don't know if it's like an actual riot shield he has or just a piece of plastic.
Right.
But
I recognized him immediately, and I don't think you were supposed to recognize him until later on.
I recognized him immediately.
But immediately I'm like, hey, that's
Marty.
No, that's not it.
Yeah, it's Marty.
No, but what's the actor's name?
Oh, the guy from Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yeah, but in The Office.
Clark. Oh, Clark.
Yeah, I was like, oh, hey, that's Clark.
And the actor's name is actually Clark. Yeah.
The actor's name is Clark, but his name is Marty in the show. But Clark from fucking The Office and Hot Tub Time Machine. Yeah, his best friend from the last movie and in this movie. And they show, I recognize him immediately, and I'm like, hey, he's in that. But then the camera cuts away. I'm like, I don't think you were supposed to like recognize him because he was also kind of looking away. Yeah, so it's like this very like kind of like chubby, recognizable guy.
He stands out amongst these people.
So then he's introducing himself because they go around the table and they're like all introducing themselves.
Yeah.
And when Clark talks, immediately Kick-Ass is like, Clark? You're like, what the fuck?
Or Marty.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Marty? Right, because that's not his name.
Also, his backstory that he made up was literally Batman.
Oh, yeah, his like, parents got murdered.
His parents got murdered on the way home from the opera.
That was good.
And,
so Kick-Ass immediately calls him out, and he's like, wait, like, how do you know that? And he's like, your parents are alive, dude. Like, that's when he finally admits to him that he's
Kick-Ass.
Yeah, but he's Dave.
Yeah, he's like, Dave, why are you dressed as Kick-Ass? He's like, because I am Kick-Ass. And he mentions later on in the movie, it's like finding out your best friend was always Will Smith. Throughout all this, we meet the leader of this group.
The leader comes in, and he's played by Jim Carrey.
Yeah, who actually does a pretty damn good job here.
He was awesome, and I was kind of like waiting for him to be Jim Carrey, like kind of be this kind of like
he was actually pretty
role.
Serious.
He was very much into the role.
Yeah,
and the character's kind of serious, which I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, he's like an ex mob enforcer. That became a born-again Christian that became a vigilante.
Right, because he wants to like do the right thing.
Right.
And use kind of, I guess, his skills for good. And to his credit, he is the other kind of competent person here.
Yes,
right?
he knows what fight.
He knows how to fight, and he's very crafty or whatever. And he goes by Colonel Stars and Stripes.
Yes.
So it's a very kind of...
And he's wearing like an old army, like with the old camouflage and army jacket. Well, he's wearing a mask and a hood. He looks kind of cool.
He's wearing like just like a mask.
Yeah.
I don't know if they did use prosthetics on him a little bit, but he doesn't really look like Jim Carrey that much. He kind of looks like an older, like if Jim Carrey had like aged very poorly.
Yeah,
but
he looks like grizzled and old, and like
I think maybe
he has like some scarring.
Yeah, well the scars obviously are prosthetics. There might be something stuffing in his mouth to kind of give him this kind of wide face look.
Yeah. Well, you can kind of hear it when he talks, too.
Yeah. It's kind of what they did with Marlon Brando when he was in The Godfather. That's why he doesn't look like Marlon Brando. They stuff his face on the inside, too. He has, like, these things, and his cheeks kind of pop him out, give him kind of this lisp. Because at first I was like, he doesn't look like Jim Carrey.
But it's like, but you know it's him.
Yeah, and I think he's probably wearing a wig. But he was really good, I thought.
Yeah.
I thought he was really, really good in this.
He's serious and he's just vigilante, but he's also like, because he's a born-again Christian, he doesn't like foul language. He doesn't like taking the Lord's name in vain. That's something that Captain America kind of does in Age of Ultron, like 2 years later.
Yeah, like a year later.
Like the whole like, hey, language.
Yeah, and he's kind of that Captain America character.
Yeah,
he's kind of this overly righteous, very patriotic character, right?
Yeah.
They put together this team, and he is kind of getting missions ready to go for them or whatever, which I thought was kind of like kind of irresponsible because he should recognize that these other people are completely void of skills.
Right.
You know?
He does attempt to train them, but...
They do a little bit of training and they get some good at some things.
They at least know how to defend themselves.
Yeah, but they're not really, especially when I was like remembering Tommy, I'm like, these are just two parents. Like they can't do anything, you know? They're going to die like if they go out there. And so I think is more or less where we get the scene where they go off to do a mission finally, right?
Yeah, and this is after like they do community service for a while. They're just kind of helping people out. Because he said mostly like the goal was to just help people. Like he says like an inebriated college girl deserves to get home safely. You know, someone that like anybody in need should be helped in some way.
And I think what's interesting about that, and I think what the movie's trying to say here, is that you don't need to be a superhero to do the right thing.
No.
In fact, there are so many things that we need regular people doing.
Yeah.
Like volunteering. I think at one point they volunteer at like a kitchen.
Yeah, they're just feeding homeless people.
They're feeding homeless people. They're giving people rights. Exactly what you were saying. And that doesn't take anything.
That's just being a good Samaritan.
Yeah, just being like a good citizen paying back into society. I thought that was really clever because like when we think of superheroes, we think of like vigilantes who are breaking the law in order to enforce the law, and sometimes maybe they're causing more bad than good, like more damage than
which is
help.
Kind of what the first movie was all about.
Yeah, and here is like this team, and the only thing that they're doing to make them feel special is that they're wearing costumes.
Yeah. But
the costume doesn't matter because they're doing regular, normal civilian things.
They're like walking old people across the street, like you said earlier.
And that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's kind of the point of like that superhero group is just like, hey, like go just volunteer, like make a difference for real.
But eventually they do go on like
and then they go
mission.
they go on an actual superhero mission.
But this mission, to be fair, is also to free
some sex
workers that are forced into human trafficking.
Human trafficking. That's what I was looking for.
They're basically busting up a human trafficking ring, which is a great thing to do. Maybe don't go about it by barging into...
No, don't do it yourself. Maybe tip off... If you know about this, by the way...
Tip off the cops?
Call the cops. Always just call the cops.
Yes.
Essentially. Never take the law into your own hands. No, so they go and do it themselves anyway.
Right.
And I love this part because, like, they get there and remembering Tommy, the couple, aren't there. And
they had Book of Mormon tickets.
Yeah, and they start giving them excuses. They're like, oh, well...
Dr. Gravity had to work late or something.
No, he had the flu.
Oh, he had the flu. He was sick.
Well, what about remembering Tommy? Well, they had Book of Mormon tickets. And it's like, cool. Like, how involved are they really? How dedicated are they? And that's kind of a joke. Like, they're not.
But, like, Colonel Stars and Stripes is like, well, this is fine. This is enough for what we need. And we've got Colonel Stars and Stripes, Night Bitch, Battle Guy,
Kick-Ass and Battle
Man.
Guy. And Insect Man wasn't there.
Insect Man was there. He had his little zappy things.
Oh, yeah. He has like tasers.
He has like stun sticks.
Yeah, which is super helpful.
Actually, he had like an actual weapon.
Right.
So they go to the door. They start asking the colonel like, how many are there? And he goes, oh, like there's 5 of them, but like plus the bodyguard that makes 6. The bodyguard opens the door.
The bodyguard is huge.
He's like 6 3/4.
Yeah. Colonel Stars and Stripes basically does all the hard work. He basically beats everybody up.
Yeah.
But what does Battle Guy does something? But,
I think he blocks Night Bitch from getting hit by someone.
Yeah, he's basically just kind of like playing defense for everybody.
Because all he has is a shield.
No, but at least he was doing something.
He was doing helpful. Something, yeah. Kick-Ass and Night Bitch.
Wasn't doing much.
He was just swinging his batons like he always does.
Yeah.
He's not a good fighter.
No, and that's when I was like saying, like, I had mixed feelings. Because I was kind of glad that he's still a bad fighter.
Right.
Because part of me, I was like, well, if you write him to be a good fighter, then like that kind of cheapens the whole concept.
Yeah.
But they didn't even make him that much better either. So at this point, I'm like, well, come on, dude. Like, you've been in a lot of fights. Shouldn't you be a little bit better than all these other people? You know?
Well, the other people weren't doing that much better either. Like, Insect Man, he had his stun stick, so he was able to, like, incapacitate some people with those.
What? Actually, we skipped... It's not important, but we skipped that earlier in this movie. He does get into a fight that he starts losing.
Yeah.
And Dr. Gravity
shows up and, like, helps him. It was Dr. Gravity's first fight.
Yeah, and he doesn't really do much. His presence just kind of scared the guys away, basically.
Yeah, and he's like, what, you're scared of a fair fight? And then, like, 6 more guys come up and they just split off and run away.
Yeah. I think the point of that scene was to contrast the scene in the previous movie where he gets into a fight in public and...
nobody does anything.
Right. Standard-bys aren't really doing anything. And he's like, what, are you not going to, like, help?
Yeah.
And Kick-Ass's point is, like, back then it's like, if you're just sitting there watching someone get beat up...
You're part of the problem.
You're part of the problem, exactly. You should do something about it. And now he's completely inspired people to do the opposite. Now people are getting overly
Dr. Gravity
involved.
steps in to help him with the fight, And even like he blocks, like Kick-Ass is about to get hit in the face with something, and he blocks it. And the first thing he says is "Run, Kick-Ass, run!" Like he's there to like defend him.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, it was a nice little inspiring scene, and they didn't like make a big deal about it either. Like he just showed up and helped them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So back to the other fight scene where they're breaking up the human trafficking ring. The guy is Benedict Wong from
the main
Doctor Strange, the main bad
guy in this area.
Room,
yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. So they beat them up, and what I liked about the scene too is that Colonel Stars and Stripes is so prepared. Everyone knows their role. When they free all the girls, they're put into a van that takes them to like a shelter to rehabilitate them, and
they gave them
jobs.
They gave them all the cash that was on the table because they were like playing poker, and there was like $50,000 on the table.
Yeah, and they just gave it to them.
Yeah, they just gave it, which was really nice.
Yeah, at that point, I had to ask myself, would I have tried to skim some from the top and pocket it for like doing the good deed? What would be my motivation, like if I was doing this? At the
Instead,
very least,
they gave the girls all of the money because the girls were worried because they're like, we don't have any money. Like, what are we gonna do?
Exactly.
Right before they end all this, the colonel is interrogating the bad guy. He gets like his dog to like start chomping on his dick and stuff.
Oh yeah. Part of Colonel Stars and Stripes' bit is that he has the German Shepherd too.
Yeah. And he pulls out a gun on the guy, which kind of like startles the other heroes because they didn't expect that.
Right.
And he used it to threaten him and get him to talk. We find out later when they're like leaving that he doesn't keep the gun loaded. He hates guns.
Exactly.
He just used it as
it's a good intimidation
scare
tactic.
Yeah. Which kind of says a lot about his character. Like he actually doesn't like violence.
So when I watched the trailer to this, I remember I thought he would have been like kind of either a bad guy or a superhero, quote unquote, that takes it too far.
Like how Big Daddy was.
Maybe, yeah. And that it would have been uncomfortable for Kick-Ass. He's like, no, like you're going too far. That's what I thought they were going to do. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of pleasantly surprised that he's the opposite of that.
Yeah, he's legitimately a good guy.
He's right. He's actually a good guy. I thought he was going to be kind of this bad guy or something in the middle. And then we get Kick-Ass and Night Bitch. They're hooking up.
In bathrooms. Public restrooms.
With their masks on, because that's part of, like, the rush, right? Is that they don't know
each other. Know each other at all,
and they're just kind of, like, hooking up. They're not really dating.
No, it's, like, it's casual.
Yeah. Meanwhile, they invite Todd, and Todd shows up, and he's wearing a Kick-Ass outfit, but with inverse colors.
Yeah, it's yellow and green instead of green and yellow.
Yeah, and he's wearing boots, but they're green boots instead of, like, tan boots.
And it's also, like, it's skin tight. It's not, like, kind of loose like Kick-Ass's outfit. It's like,
don't they say, like, we can see your balls?
They say that he has frog eye.
Oh, yeah. And they're like, what's frog eye? And they're like, oh, it's like camel toe, but for guys.
And then, like, they kind of make fun of him a little bit, but it kind of gets bad when he starts trying to come up with a name.
Oh, I get it. It's because frogs have protruding eyes. That's why they call... Okay. That's why it's called frog eye, people. Because their eyes stick out of their heads. Okay, cool. Anyway.
But, like, all of his names, like, even his costume is very derivative of
oh, yeah, and then they're like, oh, what's your name? And they're like, ass kicker?
Ass kicker, kick-ass man.
That's kind of like derivative, yeah. and he doesn't know why it's derivative. Imagine, like, Reverse Flash. You know how Reverse Flash is just Flash, but with the inverse colors?
Yeah, it's like this.
That, right. And so he gets upset and he leaves.
And he's like, I'm going to go find a new team to join.
Right. So meanwhile, Mindy's subplot is going, and she is been getting into arguments with Dave at school because Dave's like, hey, we're in this team, you need to join, we're doing really good things, and we could really use you.
He reminds her that, like, Hit Girl is who you are, which was kind of a reverse role from earlier where Hit Girl was constantly reminding Dave that, like, hey, you're not Dave, you're Kick-Ass, you're a hero.
Because she said it first, right? She's like, I'm Hit Girl, I'm not.
So Dave's using this logic on Mindy, but Mindy's like, I made a promise and I keep my word. Like, that's my thing.
Exactly. At that point, she's like, or he's like, what are you going to do? Like, start dating or whatever?
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, Roid Rage. Just some, like, jock or whatever who's just standing there. He's like, you want to take me out on a date? Yeah. And she's like, okay, cool, pick me up. She's like, see? Which I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
But so she goes on this date, and Marcus could not be more proud, which is funny because at this point, most parents would be like, overprotective, maybe not wanting their daughter to date. And he's like...
He's encouraging it.
Right. I'm so happy that you're going on a date. He doesn't even... Does he try to intimidate the guy at all?
He stands there. He looks intimidating, but he's also just an intimidating-looking guy.
Oh, no. Like, he's a handsome, muscular, black police detective.
Yeah.
It's very intimidating.
Yeah. No, he waves at the kid. That's about it, though.
Mm-hmm. He's a great character. I love Marcus. He's a good dad.
Very good dad.
So they go on a date, and he starts being a douche. He kind of takes her out to like the middle of the woods.
Well, she's like, why are we going out to the middle of the woods?
Yeah.
Like, well, that's where keg parties always are. Not always, first off.
I'm from a small town, and there people would basically have parties out in the middle of the woods all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking, even then, I'm like, this is so irresponsible. Like, someone gets drunk out here, like...
You can die.
You can die, like, yeah, out in the middle of nowhere. But anyway.
Well, she even says, like, as they get out, she's like, this isn't where you have a party, moron. This is where you dump bodies. And he just, like, kind of looks at her blankly. And she apologizes. She says, like, sorry, I'm not trying to be a bitch. You actually seem like a nice guy.
But then he takes her to, like, this clearing, and everybody's there. Like, all the cool kids are there, and it's all a prank.
What kind of prank is this, by the way?
A very bad one.
Is it just like, oh, haha, we made you feel bad?
Well, the main bitch, like the main mean girl, the queen bee, is all like, did you really think that, like, you could fit in and you could go on a date and blah, blah, blah? Like, she's being this bitch.
Which is weird because this guy was just randomly standing near Mindy when she asked him out.
Like, she
and
just...
he seemed about it.
Yeah. So it's kind of a coincidence, I guess, kind of an accident that all this happened or whatever.
Something had to have been manipulated in the background after the fact.
Exactly. So it's this huge kind of like setup, and they just like leave Mindy there, and they're like all like laughing at her.
They laugh and they all go, date ditch.
Oh, yeah. And I'm like, is that a thing? That's not a thing, right?
Like it was just mean for no reason.
Yeah.
And obviously, Mindy felt really terrible after that, so she...
Well, I thought she was going to like just beat them all up.
She should have.
But then I realized she's realizing, like, I'm actually incredibly inexperienced at this.
Yes.
Like, this is the one thing I'm not good at, and I can't solve it my way. I have to solve it their way.
Yeah.
Which I thought was awesome, because I'm like, bitch, beat them all up right now, and then they're going to respect you.
Yeah.
And that's probably what she wanted to do.
But, like, that can't be your answer to everything.
No. And then she's like, this is not the way to solve this problem.
She does get the answer to this after, like, because after this she goes to Dave's room. Like, Dave wakes up in the middle of the night. She's just standing in his room crying.
Oh, yeah.
So
because
she
Dave's
went to him for
basically
comfort.
her only friend.
Yeah.
I really, really like that scene because Dave's like, what are you upset about? You're Hit Girl. You're the biggest badass ever.
Yeah, and he's like, you're smart, you're beautiful, yeah, exactly. You have your shit together. She doesn't have anything to worry about.
And they just kind of like hug and be friends. And for a second, I was like, they better not kiss. They better not fucking kiss because
it's not earned.
It's such and it's such an easy kind of like moment to do in a movie. Like, oh, two people are kissing. Like, you get it, right?
Right.
Pointing at the audience, but let them just be friends for a minute. Like,
it was just it was a platonic moment.
Exactly. And I love that they just had a friendly moment because a lot of times movies forget that you can have a friend who's of the opposite sex.
Yeah.
Like, that is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think movies and TV like to forget that. No, we have to push romantic subplots.
Oh, they romanticize everything to where
exactly. But Hit Girl doesn't have any friends. She only has Kick-Ass. And Kick-Ass is a good friend. Like, he didn't try anything. Like, he was just like, no, like, you're awesome. How could you ever be made to feel bad?
Yeah.
You know, you're the most badass person I've ever met in my life.
Yeah. And she talks about, after this, like, she doesn't know, like, what to do about the situation. And he just says, beat them at their own game.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
So they share a nice hug, and that's what she decides to do, is just beat them at their own game. So she gets all dolled up, she gets like clothes, and shows up to school and is...
She Pretty Woman them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The queen bee says something to her.
Yeah, they're talking to this kind of nerdy girl, and you can tell they're starting to try and corrupt her.
Yeah.
Because the scene cuts to her, and she's like, all right, if you want to be popular, 2 words, sex tape.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like this just little skinny nerdy girl with glasses who looks terrified.
Yeah. And she walks in, and she basically says some things to her, and she's like, by the way, like, this is... She pulls out the 6-stick, right, at that point?
Yeah.
This is like a riot tool. It makes you want to vomit and diarrhea at the same time.
And then the girls are like, that's not a real thing.
And she does it to them, and they all vomit. Eventually does it to, like, the main bitch, mean girl, Queen Bee. And luckily, she's wearing a dress, which I thought was very smart. Because she's vomiting, and then she's also diarrhea all at the same time.
In front of the entire cafeteria.
Right in the cafeteria, yeah. And that scene was really funny.
So she beat them at their own game. She embarrassed all of them.
For sure. There's a scene here where Mindy is looking in the mirror.
And she sees herself as Hit Girl.
Exactly. It doesn't matter what costume I wear, yours or mine. I'm a superhero.
Yeah, and they're like, whatever.
Because, you know, trying to be a popular girl and a pretty girl in school, that's wearing a costume.
Yeah, that's...
And being a superhero, that's wearing a costume. But she knows who she is now.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good. So the only other important thing I think happens in the second act is that we have an exchange between Dave and his dad.
His dad found his kick-ass costume.
Yes. And he comes home and he's like, what are you doing in my room? He's like, I was looking for drugs, honestly. But then I found this.
Yeah, and he's like, this is way worse.
This is way worse than drugs. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, you shouldn't have been in my room, Dad. It's a classic scene.
But his dad was actually worried about him because he was hearing from the neighbors that Dave was like sneaking out of the apartment at like 2 a.m. and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like his suspicions kind of grew throughout the movie.
Yeah. So their conversation is about Dave is like,
oh, he kind of lays in on his dad.
Yeah, he lays on him. He's like, I'm doing something. Like, I'm being someone. Like, what are you? Like, you're nobody. Because earlier we see him like doing sit-ups or whatever.
Yeah, and he's like, what are you doing that for? So you can look like someone else?
Yeah, exactly.
Get a few more years of your worthless life, basically just.
And then he says to him, no one's going to remember you when you die.
This is kind of a Peter Parker, Uncle Ben moment.
Very much so, yeah. If that spoils what's about to happen, yeah. I think it's super interesting because we were talking about last week the themes here that his dad is a loving dad, but is not very involved.
Yeah, he's like very inactive.
Exactly.
He loves his son, but he doesn't know.
Right. He doesn't really know what to do. He's not really doing much. So at the very least, he's like looking for drugs, making sure his son wasn't raped, like we said last week.
Yeah.
And I think what I said was being a uninvolved dad is no different than being a bad dad.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter.
Even if your intentions are good, if you're not
even if you love
doing
your kid,
something.
If you're not actively being a parent, then you're being a bad parent. You're no different than the parents who don't love their kids.
Yeah, because kids shouldn't have to raise themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is kind of the consequence of that he is so mean to his dad and that he doesn't really see his dad's worth. You know,
right.
And the value that he doesn't appreciate his dad for what his dad is doing. His dad may be doing the minimum, but at the very least, his dad is still providing for his son.
Right.
He's
trying to work to pay for his college. He does mention that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he's still looking out for, like, his best, his well-being.
He's a single dad that's doing his best. Like, yeah, his best isn't good enough, but he is doing his best.
Right. And so anyway, he goes off and...
Well, he storms off, but then we get to the toxic mega cunts, and they confront the colonel while the colonel's alone.
Oh, that's right. By the way, motherfucker is calling their team toxic mega cunts.
Yeah.
So yeah, the toxic mega cunts show up, and they beat the shit out of Jim Carrey.
Yes.
And they basically just kill him there. And at one point, the Mother Russia is like, do you want me to kill the dog?
Yeah.
And McLovin's like, I'm not that evil. Like, I was like, thank God, or else I would turn this movie off.
But, like, he says that and then immediately says, cut off his head.
Well, sure. But, I mean, he's not hurting the dog, and that's what's important.
No, but he's decapitating Jim Carrey.
Oh, fuck.
Cuts to, like, a news article of, like, a man was found decapitated, and then Hit Girl's watching this on the news. She gets into a little argument with Marcus. Turns out she's grounded.
That's right.
Because she attacked those girls at school.
Well, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, it's fair. Honestly, it's about time she got grounded.
Yeah. When do they attack?
While they were attacking the colonel, they found a piece of paper with one of the team members' name on it.
Yes. And
what was that, like a bill or something? Like, why was that there?
I think, yeah. And they basically find out the identity of Night Bitch.
Yes.
So they go attack Night Bitch. After they kick her ass or whatever, they leave. Cops show up. And what I thought was funny is, like, Black Death. Him and Genghis whatever.
Carnage.
They're saying, like
why do we pay her $50,000 a week?
She gets paid way more than them. I thought it was funny that, like, they're complaining about their pay.
And then the cops show up and they're like, just let her handle it. She gets
paid more, yeah. And then she goes fucking balls to the wall. She, like, takes a propane tank. She, like, chips part of it. She chucks it out of the car. Blows up.
She shoots other cops. She
ends up in this scene.
Puts a lawnmower.
Yeah, she puts a lawnmower on the back of a patrol car. She gets into the car, kicks it in reverse, and is like flooring it. Meanwhile, another cop car shows up. She slams on the brake. The lawnmower goes flying off the car into the windshield of their car.
Shreds these two
Yeah,
cops.
I'm like, that's crazy. And we were saying last week, this movie I thought would work a lot better, at least Kick-Ass 1 would have worked better had they stuck to it being realistic.
Right.
But then they kind of get a little fantastic in some of the action scenes or whatever. Here, I'm like, same thing applies. However, at this point, it is a sequel. So, okay.
They're running with it.
They already did it once, do it again, right? Because that's absolutely ridiculous. And so she kills maybe 15 cops in about a minute of screen time.
Yeah.
And they were playing Tetris music, which I thought was awesome.
Because she's Russian.
Yeah, exactly. Tetris is like a Russian game. But anyway, still love the choice of music in these movies.
Yes.
In this one, compared to the last one, there's later on, I have a complaint there, but... So, they attack Night Bitch.
They beat the shit out of her.
Kick-Ass goes and visits her, or is that the end of the movie?
He visits her in the hospital.
He visits her in the hospital. She doesn't know who he is.
It's the first time they've seen each other's real face.
Right.
And she says something along the lines of like, "Oh, you're actually kind of cute." They have like a cute little moment, but like nothing really happens.
No, because I mean they're sort of dating, but they're sort of not, right?
Right. This is obviously a war now.
Yeah. So third act, he gets the team together, right?
Yeah. After all this happened, the cops are all having a meeting. And they're like, how did these people get away? And then it's mentioned, like, all they have to do is take off their mask and they blend in again. Like, nobody knows what they actually look like.
So they crack down on all these
on
masked
every
vigilantes.
single masked vigilante, including Kick-Ass and his team, who really just do community service.
Right, exactly.
But they just kind of arrest them all.
They arrest them all, and
they show up.
They get to Kick-Ass's house because they tracked his IP address again.
Because he's an idiot.
That happened in the last movie. The cops arrest the dad. The dad says that he's Kick-Ass.
Yeah, because Kick-Ass wasn't there. His costume was... Either way, the cops arrest him because he claims that he's Kick-Ass. Dave shows up at the apartment as it's all happening and sees his dad getting arrested.
Yeah. He calls his dad in jail, and his dad's like, I spoke to my lawyer. They can't do anything. I didn't break any crimes. They're just kind of holding all these people or whatever.
They're just being detained for like a day or two.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, motherfucker knows that Kick-Ass is in jail.
Yes.
Right? So he sends a couple goons over there, and they find the old man. They're like, well, this isn't Kick-Ass. Motherfucker's like, whatever. Like, we're going to send a message. Yeah. So they call...
They don't call him. They send him
a picture.
Like Kick-Ass is like, I have a text from Chris D'Amico. That's weird. And then he looks at it, and it's pictures of his dad. They had killed him and hung him with the belt.
Oh, it's rough.
Yeah. It is pretty rough. Like he sees the text, and then he just kind of breaks down and starts crying. And his friend Marty's there with him, and he has no idea what just happened. So he picks up the phone. That's when we see the pictures, and we're like, oh.
He immediately collapses and starts crying.
Yeah.
I like that because in a movie sometimes I feel like they don't handle trauma right. If something
they brush it off.
Yeah, exactly. Or they're like super cool about it. I'm like, if something like that happened to me, like if someone killed my parents,
and then sent me a picture of it,
I'd be a fucking mess, right? Like I would, like who knows? I don't even know what I would do, but I wouldn't keep my composure at all.
No.
And so he immediately like collapses to the ground and is crying insufferably, and I'm like, that's exactly what I would probably do. And it's kind of the first time I feel like I've seen it on camera. So.
And we didn't mention this earlier, but the reason why the motherfucker and his crew started getting so much more aggressive is because he kind of had like an evil awakening when he went to visit his uncle in prison.
Yeah, I thought that, and I was like, oh, we'll just skip it or whatever. He goes and visits his uncle, who is running a lot of like the crime family.
He's basically
jail.
Running the family from jail.
Yeah.
And he's telling him like, hey, I need everyone to lay low, like stop doing this shit. He talks about how like he's the motherfucker, and he's like, no, I'm going to show you what like being bad really is. And then he orders
his people to
kill
not Luigi, Javier.
And they do
John
this
Leguizamo,
while on the phone with Chris. And then this is where Chris is like, you know what? Thank you for that, because now I know what I need to do.
Yeah. And I kind of took that as another kind of like parental, because he does kind of serve as a parental figure to McLovin, right?
Yeah. So he lost his other father figure.
Yeah. And that really kind of throws him off.
Yeah, and that's what pushes him over the deep end. He actually becomes like evil.
Yeah. They cut to his lair. He creates a lair with a shark tank and a bunch of strippers and shit.
Yeah.
In the lair, I love that the sharks are sitting at the bottom, and he's like, they're like, is he dead? And Mother Russia's like, no, he just has to feed. He's like basically hibernating.
It's kind of like this joke, like, is the shark dead? Is it not dead?
Yeah.
Like, we don't know. But we also see that they hired a bunch of just regular ass people that joined the supervillain squad.
I think they invited anyone who wanted to be a supervillain.
Anybody that wanted to join. And that's how they found out Kick-Ass's dad wasn't Kick-Ass, and that it was that was his dad in prison.
Oh,
because at first they were like, oh no, they just arrested like some old fuck, and like, that's not Kick-Ass.
Well, it's because Todd shows up.
And then Todd shows up, and he's like, no, that's his dad.
And he's sitting in the lair, and he's very awkward and out of place.
He just kind of walks in.
Yeah. He's wearing his reverse Kick-Ass like outfit or whatever.
People are like staring at him like, what the fuck? But he gives all this information about Dave and his dad to the motherfucker.
Yeah.
And that leads to Dave's dad's death.
Yes.
And then at his funeral, at his dad's funeral,
they get attacked.
Some of the mega cunts attack the funeral, which is a very cunny thing to do. You don't
Well, they are
shooting at people at a funeral.
Wait,
it's
what are they
fucked
called?
up. The toxic megacunts.
Yeah, they are the toxic mega cunts. So they attack him at the funeral. There's a chase. Mindy's helping.
They
Mindy's
kidnap
there.
him. They start shooting up the place. They kill a bunch of cops there, I think.
Yeah.
And then they kidnap Dave.
Mindy helps.
Mindy helps.
There's a great chase sequence. I love that chase.
They're about to like torture him in the van, and then she starts killing them one by one.
Right.
But all this is happening. Marcus is like, where the fuck did Mindy go? Because she disappeared in all the chaos. At this point here, like during like the chase sequence, like she is fully going like hit girl mode again. Like she's not in costume, but she is like
right. Because she
took Marcus's gun and started saving Dave. She saved Dave.
Because Dave is being kidnapped. Like, what else is she gonna do?
She kills
can't not
everybody
do it,
that
right?
was in that truck, and then we have just the tumor, and she says, "I'm gonna make this guy eat his own dick to get me some pliers."
Oh yeah.
And then the tumor's like, "Wait, seriously?" And that's the last time we see him.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And now they have all the information on Chris D'Amico at this point.
So they
know where his lair is.
Yeah, they stormed the lair, but they wrangled up everybody. The whole Justice Forever, anyone else they can. They're all there together. The fucking parents are there, like the Remembering Tommy.
Like, this is like the final showdown between
and there's a big
heroes
showdown.
and villains.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of like that they did that.
And it's in like this warehouse.
Yeah. So they have this huge fight. Everyone's fighting each other.
Yeah.
Also, Kick-Ass is wearing his Kick-Ass outfit, but he's armored up by wearing parts of Big Daddy's outfit.
And like he has the Big Daddy
really
utility
good.
belt, but it says KA instead of BD on it.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good. I liked his like new outfit because like last week I said, shouldn't he be wearing more armor?
Like some sort of
Just
protection.
something.
Yeah.
Especially after every time he gets like the shit kicked out of him.
And now he is wearing some armor because he's going into a big fight.
Yeah. So he goes to fight. I'm pretty sure he's fighting Motherfucker, right?
Yeah, like he fights some people to get to him, but he goes directly for him.
Right.
They take the fight up to the roof.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Hit Girl is fighting Mother Russia, who's the only other
competent fighter in this entire warehouse.
So they're having their fight. I remember thinking the only thing I would have done differently here is that they do a orchestrated score for the music, which is okay because the score's by Henry Jackman and he's really good.
Yeah.
But I would have really liked some like a soundtrack, like a song playing.
For this scene in particular?
Yeah, because it kind of goes back to the last movie where, you know, she's storming the bad guy's lair and they've got music playing.
Yeah.
And it's like a kick-ass vibe for lack of a better way of describing it.
No, the songs that they choose for like soundtrack type music is good.
Yeah, are great. And I would have liked that here in some capacity instead of like a score. But
right. I think they were trying to be a bit more serious with this scene though, because there's not a lot of humor in this fight either.
Towards the end, well, it's kind of capped off with a funny scene. So,
right.
But
so
they're all fighting. There's
fight's
a lot
like
of
super serious, like up to that.
Sure. Someone's using the six stick, and
Todd picks up the six stick and uses it to save Battle Guy.
Yeah, Battle Guy's using his shield, so he's not getting vomited on.
Yeah,
I thought that was funny.
But like they're all working together and fighting, and it's cool.
Meanwhile, Kick-Ass is fighting McLovin on the rooftop, and I thought this is Chekhov's shark. There's a shark in the scene. Someone's gonna fall in that tank and get eaten by the shark. They're fighting up on the roof on a skylight.
Yep, and it starts like cracking as they're fighting.
And so McLovin inevitably falls through it. He falls into the tank. He survives the fall because he falls into a water tank, so good for him or whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, shark? And that's when the shark comes up and eats him.
And it's funny too because as he's falling, right before he fell, Kick-Ass grabbed him and was trying to save his life.
That's right.
And he's like, no, don't save me. Like, I'd rather die. And then Kick-Ass is like, this is real life. It's not a comic book. If you die, it's over.
Right.
But, like, McLovin still fights it. He lets go. As he's falling, he comes to that realization. He's like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
And he lands in the water.
I'm gonna die.
He gets up, and he's excited that he's alive. His last words before the shark attacks him is, Dave, I'm so sorry.
Because let's not forget, Chris D'Amico, McLovin, motherfucker, is a huge comic book nerd also.
Yeah, he wasn't like a bad kid either.
Right. And in comics, people almost never die, right? If you're an important character, you're probably going to come back in some form or another.
Yeah. I think he was just actually delusional.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so Kick-Ass is kind of like friend to friend almost, trying to tell him like, hey, like
stop.
Yeah, like this isn't, you're not going to have a glorified ending.
Yeah, he's
You're
like, I wanted to stop you, but I didn't want to kill you. Like,
yeah. And so the shark, who they said is just hibernating because he has to feed, eats Chris D'Amico.
Yep. And then
Oh yeah. So meanwhile, the fight with Mother Russia and Hit Girl, she has these. Okay, so early we skipped it. It's not that important. Early in the movie,
like the beginning of the movie.
yeah,
Almost.
when they're in their superhero lair, there's these 2 syringes, and Kick-Ass is like, "What are those for?" And she's like,
It's a last resort.
It's a
like
last
if you're
resort.
about to die,
"Exactly." And
there's no other option.
Yeah, the implication is that it's like a suicide shot. So if you're about to be killed or tortured, it's like a cyanide pill, basically. You give yourself the shot and you'll die.
Yeah, and
that's the implication. However, when she's actually about to get killed by Mother Russia, she
pulls the syringe out. And I think Mother Russia assumes what we assumed.
Yes, she assumes it's like a suicide drug. So she puts it in Hit Girl.
Yeah, because she thought Hit Girl was going to inject her with it.
Exactly. Hit Girl's like, oh no, it's adrenaline. And I said that to you too. I was like, I think this is adrenaline, actually.
And like Hit Girl's eyes get really big, like
her
very
pupils
dilate.
Yeah, and then she goes nuts.
Yeah, and she goes, it's called adrenaline, bitch. And then like Mother Russia starts punching her in the face, and Hit Girl's just laughing.
That was pretty good.
So then Hit Girl
it's
starts
almost
stabbing
as
her
if
with shards of glass.
She was invoking her own inner Nick Cage.
Yeah.
Because she's getting punched and she's like laughing it off or whatever.
Yeah.
So, how does she kill Mother Russia?
She starts just stabbing her with a bunch of shards of glass, like in the legs, the neck, the back.
Oh, that's right.
And then, like, as Mother Russia, like, drops to her knees, like, pretty much dead, Hit Girl says in Russian, I thought a cunt like you would be able to take all those little pricks.
Nice.
I don't know if it was a direct translation to what she was saying.
Obviously, probably not, but that's a great
that was
line
like
for
the last
Kick-Ass.
thing that she said to her, and then she died. So Chris D'Amico got eaten by the shark. Mother Russia's dead. The fight's over because the 2 main bad guys are done.
Yeah.
Like, Hit Girl had already killed Black Death and Genghis Carnage. The tumor's gone. Like, all the bad guys are done.
Oh, real quick, right before this all started, we skipped nudity minute because at one point, Kick-Ass and Hit Girl are together. They're about to get ready for this fight, and he takes his shirt off, and he's got killer abs.
Yeah. And she even checks him out for a second.
Because remember, now she's been awakened.
Yes,
right?
at this point,
she's more of an adult. Her sexuality has been awakened. And she, like, checks him out for a second.
Just
because
a second,
now she's
and
like,
looks
wait
away.
a second, like, men.
And he is actually
he looked
ripped.
Fucking ripped. And we were talking about this when we watched the movie. Was he this ripped last time and they just didn't want to show it, or is this new?
This was also around the time where he would have been filming Avengers and Godzilla. So I think he got ripped for those roles.
He's got several roles, and he's like, I need to be
in good shape.
Like, movie star ripped.
Yeah.
Which he was. Credit to him.
He was just
great.
He was just a skinny guy before.
Yeah. Also, there's some random hookers that show their tits. Not important. But the man abs is the point I'm
Most
trying to make
superhero
here.
movies are going to have this.
That's what the nudity minute is all about, the man abs. Forget the tits. So then the movie is wrapping up. At the end, we get Hit Girl and Dave kind of exchanging their last goodbyes because Hit Girl says, I gotta go.
The cops are after me. The gun. I killed 6 people with a cop's gun.
Yeah, because she took Marcus gun.
Can't do anything to protect me right now.
He can't protect me anymore or whatever.
She goes on the run, basically. Because she's at this point, she is wanted. Right?
Exactly.
Rightfully so.
But, and one of the more controversial things about this movie, then they share a kiss.
Yeah, when I first saw that, I was like, are you kidding me?
Here's the thing, and I think, I don't know, maybe I was seeing what the filmmakers were seeing because I had no problem with it. I loved it because I thought it fit her arc at this point where it's not a romantic kiss.
No, and upon a second viewing, I might feel the same way. I want to hear what you say, though.
She's just thinking like, because remember, during this movie, she's a superhero, and she realizes she didn't have a childhood, and now she's not about to have, like, this kind of teenage years.
Yeah.
She's challenged to be a teenager, right? To
She's
be like
never
a cool
kissed
girl.
anyone.
She takes that challenge head on. The last thing, like, on her list before she can kind of, like, go off into the world is she never kissed a boy.
Yeah.
Right? So I think at this moment she's like, you know what? I don't want to date a douchebag. I don't want to get into anything with anyone right now. I have so much to do. But Dave, who's like my best friend, basically, and a boy, and he's good looking.
And he's a good guy.
He's a nice guy. He's a good guy. If I kiss him right now, that checks that off my list, and I can forget about growing into being a woman. I can just be a woman. I think that's what they were going for here.
And on, like, a second viewing, I did realize that.
Yeah.
The first time I saw it in the theater, I was like, oh, no.
Okay, but here's the thing. If they wanted to start a romantic thing, they would have had them kiss earlier.
Yeah, they would have built up to it.
In the bedroom.
Yeah.
When we were talking about that.
And it wasn't like a makeout session. She kisses him really quick, and he's like, what was that? And then she just goes, that was my first kiss.
And then leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not a romantic thing at all. I think she just says, you know what? I need to get this like off my back. I need to check this off my list. I need to kiss a boy.
Yeah,
That's it.
It was more friendly than anything, actually.
Exactly.
It was honestly kind of sweet.
Exactly. That's how I took it, and I thought it was great. And later on, I read reviews, and people hated it. But
I think that was part of the issues that plagued the box office.
Yeah. But I really liked it. I really liked that scene.
Like I said, like upon watching it again, I realized that.
Yeah.
But upon first viewing, I did not.
Yeah. That's basically the movie.
Roll credits. We have a post-credit scene where we find out that Chris D'Amico survived.
McLovin's alive. He's in the hospital.
He's in a hospital bed. He's missing all of his limbs.
Yeah. Well, also, like, and, you know, we're going to probably talk about post-credits scenes. We should probably maybe do a little bit more research because post-credit scenes were a thing, but they were kind of popularized by Marvel. Right.
Ghost Rider could have had some that we missed, now that I'm thinking about it.
You know, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, you know, we should really be on the lookout for post-credit scenes.
Yeah.
Like, random movies would have them, and then Marvel kind of started putting them in every movie, and then people started kind of paying attention to that.
Yeah.
The only reason we watched is because you reminded me that there was one. I was about to turn it off. Yeah.
But I also forgot the very last shot of the movie before the credits. It shows Kick-Ass doing pull-ups, like one-arm pull-ups. He's very ripped.
Oh, yeah, he's getting good.
It zooms out. He has a Kick-Ass helmet that's made of metal. Like
That's
it looks like actual armor.
Yeah.
So
I like that a lot.
Kind of a tease towards what would have been to come.
Yeah.
That shot is intercut with shots of, like, you have Dr. Gravity, who's just a regular civilian now. He sees a lady get mugged, and in just his regular civilian clothes, he runs after.
He's like, I'm going to do something about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, like, these people are inspired to do good deeds, even not in costume, which we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, so that's the movie. I stand corrected.
Yeah, now it's end movie.
That's the movie. Yeah. So, I really liked this movie.
I liked it too. I do think the first one was more enjoyable to watch, like more of a fun ride.
I think the first one's smarter.
That too.
It's not its fault. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because
but this movie's a worthy sequel.
Yeah, no, I thought this movie was good.
Absolutely.
I had heard bad things. It might have been the Rotten Tomatoes score, which is like in the 30s or 40s or something.
It's not great.
That made me not want to go watch it in theaters. But it's one of those things where I'm like, you can't always go off by Rotten Tomatoes. Don't forget that Rotten Tomatoes is an aggregate score of ones and zeros based off if someone likes the movie or doesn't like the movie.
Right.
So if 100 people say, well, I didn't like the movie, but just by this much or whatever, then it's going to get a 0%.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it's a 0 out of 100. That means it's a 49 out of 100. You know what I mean?
And then this movie was also, like, it was panned by, like, critics too. Like,
here's the thing. Here's the trouble with sequels. When you have a sequel, and we've been spoiled a lot by Marvel, every sequel in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is usually better than the previous one, right? They only build upon each movie, but that's not normal. Sequels are usually worse than the original,
that's true.
Right?
No, normally they are.
And the reason is because it's difficult.
It's hard to capture what the original captured.
You can't do the same exact thing as the first time. You got to do something different. But if you're too different, then
people will be pissed.
It's not really a sequel, right? Because you're not hearkening what made the original great. So
it's the whole concept of trying to catch lightning in a bottle twice.
Yeah, so it's a damn if you do, damn if you don't situation to me. So sequels are tough. For this movie, I thought, specifically, in terms of themes, we sort of talked about it, I think they evolved the themes very well. However, the whole premise of superheroes in real life and the deconstruction of a comic book, that kind of falls apart because you already did it one time. You can't do it twice, right? So this movie feels like just a continuation of the plot, where the plot in the first movie was the least important aspect of it. You know, the deconstruction and the commentary and the themes were the most important part of the first movie. So now you get to the second movie and you're like, well, this is just like, hey, here's what the characters are doing now. And that might not be as exciting as like a new deconstruction on these comic book characters.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
Which this movie, to its credit, did try to do that with like the whole supervillain side of it. But it did kind of just feel like it was doing like the same thing that the heroes did, but bad.
Sure, yeah. And it can feel repetitive. I thought it was just fine. This movie is overall good, I think. I had a really good time with it. Like, we watched it the other night, and I was having fun.
It's a fun movie to watch.
I like how it subverts expectations a lot of the times. Like, a lot of the things I read in reviews where people didn't like Hit Girl's storyline, her subplot, and I liked it a lot. Like we said, she's already this perfect superhero. So where's the challenge for her character?
I'll say, like, thematically, her plot works. But as far as the demographic of the people that are going to go watch this movie, they're going to hate that.
Yeah, it's like a Last Jedi thing where they're like, no, I just want to see Luke Skywalker be a badass. Yeah, but Luke Skywalker was never a badass. Luke Skywalker is a good Jedi because he makes good decisions.
Yeah.
You know, because he's smart. It's not because he does a lot of flips. It's his choices. And in that movie, he makes good choices.
Well, in fact,
you know what I'm saying?
the original Star Wars movies make Luke out to be kind of a whiny bitch.
Yeah, and then he overcomes that, makes good choices, becomes a hero.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? So
Hero's journey.
Yeah. I feel like these people wanted Hit Girl to just murder everybody, but that doesn't make a compelling story.
No.
How do you challenge the character of Hit Girl? This is the only way, I feel. You created this character. The only way to challenge her
Put her
is
in
to
a fish out of water type scenario.
You present her with something she's not comfortable with. And that's what this movie did, and did it very well.
Yes.
So I saw no problem with that. Also, this movie was supposed to kind of keep going. There was going to be a Kick-Ass 3, and there was going to be a Hit Girl spinoff.
Yes.
And I would have been okay with both of those things.
And that ended up not happening.
None of this happened. Do you want to talk about why?
Yeah, well, part of it was, I think Jim Carrey did a bit to damage the marketing of this movie.
So Jim Carrey spoke out, sort of, against marketing the movie on his part. Because as far as these movies go, when you're starring in it, you're supposed to go on a press tour. You travel the country, but you travel the world,
You travel
basically,
and promote the movie. Get people to watch it.
He didn't want to because of the Sandy Hook massacre. As this movie's coming out, Sandy Hook happens. If you don't know, I mean, I don't want to talk about it. It's horrible. A man went into an elementary school and shot a kindergarten class.
Yes.
So I think 20 kindergarten kids were murdered.
It was quite a few, I believe.
I don't want to do a disservice by not. So 26 children between the ages of 5 and 6 were brutally murdered by a killer, by a man with a gun.
By a psychopath with a gun, yeah.
And
this had happened the year prior to this movie coming out.
This happened...
It was 2012, I believe.
December 2012.
Yeah.
So this would have happened a few months before the movie came out.
Yep.
Around the time that probably a month away from when the movie was supposed to be promoted.
When marketing would start.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, if you live in the United States, you know Sandy Hook was just the beginning of a string of mass shootings.
Yeah.
So if you, I mean, not to get super into it, if you look at the statistics, a lot of people will say gun violence has not really risen that much, and that is kind of true. Gun violence and murders and deaths by guns are more or less the same as they were 20 years ago. However, those are like murders, motivated killings.
Yeah.
Random
These
acts
are like
of
senseless.
violence.
Yeah.
Random acts of mass shootings. That has propelled exponentially in the last 10 years.
And there is a very big difference between the two.
Exactly. Because, I mean, if someone walks into this house right now and kills me, I really hope they have motivation, even if they're wrong. You know what I'm saying? If someone kills me randomly,
if you're going to kill me,
I'll be pretty pissed
do
off.
it for a reason,
Exactly.
please.
Even if you're wrong. But, I mean, these mass killings are on the rise. And Sandy Hook was probably the worst one.
It was one of the ones that got the most media attention, for sure.
I don't even want to get into the people that think that Sandy Hook didn't even happen. There are people out there that think it was all fake.
Yeah.
But fuck you. Anyway.
That's not what this podcast is about.
Children from the age of 5 to 6 were brutally murdered.
And
so you see why maybe people start looking at movies that promote gun violence and point a finger.
Right.
This isn't new. Right?
Because this has been a thing for a long time.
People have been pointing fingers at like
video games
for a long time. And study after study will show that violent video games do not incite real life violence.
No.
Most people, and by most I mean most, can tell the difference between a video game and real life.
Yeah.
Right? And a video game is a great way to, if anything, get your anger out on a video game. Something that's not real and not
you can vent in
your
a way
friends.
that isn't harmful to anyone.
Exactly. So he didn't want to go and promote this because he said it's not the right time. And I might agree with him.
Yeah.
I
have the quote from him here.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
He said, Carrie said, I did Kick-Ass a month before Sandy Hook, and now in all good conscience, I cannot support that level of violence. My apologies to others involved with the film. I'm not ashamed of it, but recent events have caused a change in my heart.
I don't disagree with him at all because...
No, he had a good point.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate for the movie, but to me, like, there's a time and place for everything, and I see where he feels conflicted about promoting this film that shows a lot of gun violence at the same time, like, this, like, tragedy is happening.
But
He
ended up just, like, he refused to promote the film.
Yeah.
that didn't help.
He also doesn't have a huge role in the movie. But again, he was the biggest name, and that's probably why they got him.
Yeah. It does suck from, like, the production standpoint to where they're like, oh, well, our biggest star of the movie isn't promoting our movie.
Yeah, for sure. Where do you stand on this? Like, films being responsible for violent acts in real life?
I don't think there's a correlation between the two.
But do you feel that the movie industry needs to kind of look into itself and change the way it's acting?
You mean like
in response to these kind of incidences?
To a certain extent, yes.
Okay.
But don't make like a complete 180 because that's not going to help things either.
I kind of agree. My opinion has changed a lot. I used to think that like a movie should do whatever it wants to do because it's art, and it's not. It doesn't fall on the artist to like be responsible for the people that look onto their art.
That's true.
Saying? Like how you look on art and how you interpret it, that's on you. That is not the artist's responsibility. If you read into something a certain way, that is part of what art is. You know what I mean? And so I feel like an artist should do whatever they want. And how you read it, that's up to you, and that's your own prerogative.
It's on you.
And any consequences of that is your fault, not the artist's fault.
And this is like a very basic argument, but if you're going to go shoot up a place because you saw people shooting guns in a movie, like, the issue is with you.
Exactly.
It's not the movie.
Exactly.
Because 9 times out of 10, the movie will portray that fact as not being a good thing to do.
Yeah, and that's where I was getting at. I feel like I've changed a little bit because this movie is a little fantastic, like we were saying.
Right.
And they're superheroes. The whole point of this is like, these are people who decided to be superheroes.
Oh, yeah.
And they decided to wear masks and be vigilantes or whatever. It doesn't feel like real life.
No.
You know what I mean? So since this movie came out, there have been other instances where movies have been delayed because of mass shootings. Like I said, mass shootings have been exponentially on the rise. There was a mass shooting last year or the year before, I don't know what year it is anymore, where it affected season 2, I think, of The Punisher. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. I don't remember what the incident was, but
the Walmart shooting. I don't know. But in that instance, I'm like, yeah, it's probably for the best.
No, yeah.
You need to delay this show.
Delay it and wait for the timing to be right. But you don't have to change the content of your show
and they
to
didn't
reflect
do
it.
that.
Right.
But The Punisher, I think, is a different situation because The Punisher is not, I mean, he is a Marvel hero or whatever.
He's an anti-hero.
Right. Yeah. But specifically, he is just kind of like a normal man who went and bought a bunch of guns and bombs and shit, a bunch of which he made himself, the bombs and armor. And he goes and doles off justice however he sees fit.
Right.
And now, The Punisher is set in the Marvel Universe, which also has aliens and the Avengers and superheroes and superpowers and all this bullshit. But The Punisher within his own immediate world is very much set in our reality.
Yeah, very gritty,
It's very realistic.
Grounded.
And so if you were to go watch that and be inspired, then I kind of get it. I get how that may be possible.
Right.
Because he's a normal man who just decided to go take action into his own hands.
But even in those stories, like the way people react to them, they're like, hey, you're psychotic.
So, and that's kind of where I want to get to, is that I feel like it's easy to point the blame on TV shows, violent video games, movies.
Right.
Where maybe we should be focused on who are the people who are watching this and getting inspired, and why are they getting inspired, and should we be able to catch this before it happens?
Yeah, maybe we can do something to help.
When you watch like a car commercial, they're always like driving on a mountain,
right?
And whatever. There's some text on the bottom of the screen. It's like professional driver, close course, do not attempt.
Yeah.
And at the end of all these movies, by the way, there's a bunch of blurbs that say shit like that. It's like, hey, like, all this is fake.
They're just covering their own asses.
But nobody reads that stuff.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Would you put that in the beginning of a movie? Or would that ruin the flow of the film?
I think it would ruin the flow of the film.
And I feel like,
to be totally honest,
I feel like it's easy for us to say because we're not the crazies that go out and buy guns and
That's
go
true
try
too,
to do what the Punisher's doing.
Even with like movies like The Fast and the Furious, I guarantee you there was people trying to street race after watching that.
I feel like maybe The Fast and the Furious puts that up closer in the credits. It's like the first thing that pops at the credits. It's like directed by so-and-so.
Well, because they know that their movies are like romanticizing street racing.
Like, don't do any of this shit, you dumbass. Like, you will die. Do you remember the Aurora, Colorado shooting?
Yeah.
A man dressed up very similar to like Bane went to go shoot
at the Dark Knight Rises.
At a Dark Knight Rises premiere. Mm-hmm. In that sense, I'm like, look, I don't know much about that man. I think he was shot on the spot or he was arrested. I don't know.
He was arrested.
Okay.
Because he like went to a trial and everything.
Okay.
He was the guy with like the orange hair and stuff.
Oh, yeah, you're right. So, like, I don't know what inspired this man.
No.
But I feel like we should be more concerned about preventing people like that in their mental health state access to this kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
the same way we rate movies, if this movie's rated R, you're not taking your 6-year-old to go see it, right? So don't take your mentally insane person to see it. And I know that's, okay, so like, we don't know who the mentally unstable people are, but I don't know, dude. I feel like we should be more proactive at helping people instead of ignoring them and then letting them getting inspired by this
and
kind
lay
of
the
thing.
blame somewhere else. And,
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very easy to lay the blame.
Because it's not fixing the
on
problem.
entertainment.
It's, yeah.
Because I see this movie and I told somebody, I didn't think it was that violent, to be completely honest.
No. Even
And
compared to the
reason
first
is-
one, it wasn't that violent.
Yeah, I thought it was less violent than the first one, but also I felt this movie was very fake violent, and so it didn't feel violent to me because it was very fake.
Correct.
If I put a lawnmower on top of my car, I can't launch into someone else's car and have it shred their face away, like in this movie. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, if I watch The Punisher and it's a very real gun or grenades, or that's all real things.
Right.
And it feels very real when you watch it, that might be a little bit different.
But it's still
You know
not
what I'm
going to
saying?
inspire me to do that.
Not me.
No,
but you know what
but
I'm
I
saying?
guess
Maybe
someone out there.
else.
Yeah.
So I think it's a
Yeah.
pretty complicated issue, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to go out and place the blame on the movie. Now, I feel like the movie does have a responsibility to not glorify those people. You know, that's one of my problems with the movie The Joker, right? Because that's the hero of that movie. Joker is the hero of that film.
Yeah, but he was doing some really shitty things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That movie I have a little bit more problem with. In this, I have a lot of problems with that movie. But in this sense, because that movie is saying, hey, this is the good guy. He has reason to do this. He has reason to go shoot 3 guys he doesn't agree with because they're of the fucking ruling class in that movie. And he shoots them, and then he shoots Robert De Niro, and look how he dances and blah,
And then
blah, blah.
the whole city riots and celebrates him.
Exactly. I have more problem with that than this because at least in this, the morality is played throughout the themes of the movie where the good guys are rewarded and the bad guys lose, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know where you
But
feel
yeah,
about
that whole controversy didn't help. Mark Millar replied to it. Hey, this movie's called Kick-Ass 2. Like, there's going to be violence in it. And then,
exactly.
Chloe Grace Moretz also commented, and she actually had an interesting quote. It's kind of long, but she said, "It's a movie. If you're going to believe and be affected by an action film, you shouldn't go see Pocahontas because then you're going to think you're a Disney princess. If you're that easily swayed, you might watch The Silence of the Lambs and think you're a serial killer. It's a movie and it's fake, and I've known that since I was a kid. I don't want to run around trying to kill people and cuss. If anything, these movies teach you what not to do."
Yeah,
this is
and
a
that's what
quote from a, like, at the time, 15-year-old girl.
But yeah, exactly. And that's what I said. I'm like, you should be able to kind of tell the difference. And not only that, the movie is telling you, like, the good people are rewarded and the bad people lose.
Yeah.
She also said something that she didn't like how the movie was made, right?
Yeah, she said
We
she
don't-
didn't like the way that, like, Kick-Ass 2 was, like, handled. I don't know if she meant... She wasn't super specific.
Right.
I don't know if she meant, like, as far as filming goes or the plot.
She had a bad time on the set
Yeah,
or something.
she didn't enjoy it, so
Okay.
she said she wouldn't come back for a sequel, which
that sucks.
that hurts it as well.
Yeah. Would you see a Kick-Ass 3?
I absolutely would.
I would too. And it's like I said last week, I think today's the time to do a Kick-Ass 3, more so than it was 10 years ago.
Right. But knowing Hollywood, they wouldn't do a sequel. They
No,
just
no,
reboot it.
this is over, and that's why
Yeah.
it's on the podcast.
Yeah.
But I think we're living in this superhero movie world now, you know, with Marvel.
Yeah, it's the perfect time to deconstruct it and
Exactly.
get it out there.
Exactly. So I would love to see more of this stuff. I would love to see a Kick-Ass 3 and a Hit Girl spinoff, all the things that they were planning for. These people all moved on to
Other things.
Kingsman.
Yeah.
And making a huge Kingsman universe. Kingsman, which is the prequel, is a spin-off. It's not Kingsman 3.
Yeah.
They're gonna make a Kingsman 3 also. So they're applying all of these same concepts to Kingsman. That's what they're on right now.
Which is also a comic written by Mark Millar, and
yeah,
the
yeah,
movies are being made by Matthew Vaughn.
Exactly. It's the same team. I would love for them to prove us wrong, go back to Kick-Ass and do something. You can do a lot with this kind of time skip. You know, it's been 7 years since this movie was made, so where is Hit Girl today? You
Yeah.
know, like, what did her solo adventures take her to? What's Kick-Ass doing? I think a Kick-Ass 3 would do well.
And both Aaron Taylor Johnson and Chloe Grace Moretz are both more seasoned actors now than they were 7 years ago. So honestly, it's something I'd love to see.
Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
shame that we probably won't.
Seriously. So moving on to Keep or Cancel. The only new actor basically in this is Jim Carrey.
Right.
So, how do you feel about Jim Carrey?
I feel a lot of different things about Jim Carrey.
Okay, go.
I think in the 90s he was fantastic, and that's where some of his best work was. And then he started getting a little weird, which I've since found out like he does suffer from depression and various other ailments upon his mental health, which is terrible. But as far as keep or cancel being in like the movie world and Hollywood, I will probably say cancel. Not because I think he's a shitty person or anything like that. Like, it's not like, oh, he's shitty, cancel him. But more in the sense of, like, maybe it's time to retire and, like, do something a little healthy for yourself. Unless movies are, like, his getaway from all that.
Sure, from, like, depression.
Right. If that's the case, then, yeah, keep doing your thing, but...
I have a lot of mixed thoughts about Jim Carrey.
I'm not as big a Carrey fan as I used to be. I'll say that.
Okay. I like him a lot. I think it's important because a lot of people get carried away with the concept of celebrity, where they take an actor and it's a package deal, where if they like their music, then they like everything about them. They'll defend them to the end of the world. And I feel like it's important for us to be able to separate the art from the artist a little bit. Mm-hmm. Depends. You know, it's not always like, okay, like I'm never going to watch The Cosby Show again. You know what I'm saying? It's ruined for me forever. But
I don't think I was ever that big a fan of it anyway.
I was a huge fan. Also, Bill Cosby's stand-up is iconic and it's some of the best. And he's a genius.
Right.
Comedically, however, we'll get into it one day, I'm sure. But I can't do that anymore because of what Bill Cosby has done since, right? Mm-hmm. Or has been doing all along, and now we're just finding out about it. But for anything less than that, you know, for like date raping people or whatever, like someone's personal views or what they're doing off screen, I'm like, okay, you should be able to see like their work and say, I like your work. That doesn't mean I'm going to defend you as a person.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I know some people that cannot do that because they're obsessed with the concept of celebrity. And they just love a celebrity to the end of the world. And they're going to, like, doesn't matter what they do wrong, I'm going to stand behind them no matter what. But I think I would love to tell that person, you just like their work. You know
don't
what
like
I'm saying?
them as a person.
You like their music. You like what they do in movies. As far as Jim Carrey's concerned, I love everything he's ever been in. Like, I love him as an actor. From the early stuff, all the slapstick like comedy
the
stuff.
Mask.
The Mask, Ace Ventura.
Batman.
And yeah, when we're doing Batman Forever soon, Dumb and Dumber, Liar Liar, you know, all that kind of early stuff.
Those are all iconic roles, too.
Yeah, and he's fantastic. I mean, he does that shtick very well.
Even recently with Sonic the Hedgehog, he did do
Sonic
really
the Hedgehog,
well.
yeah, he was fine in that. Later on, he started doing more serious acting. Have you ever seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
Yes.
It's a fucking amazing movie. That film is incredible, and he's incredible in it. He did the movie Man on the Moon, where he portrayed Andy Kaufman. Do you know who Andy Kaufman is?
I know the name.
He's an
you
actor.
Might have to refresh me on.
So he's an actor, entertainer, and he was kind of known for this very specific humor that he had, and this very specific kind of like persona that he carried. He was in Taxi, the TV show.
Okay.
You ever watched Taxi
yeah.
from the 70s?
I've seen like a couple episodes. I didn't like follow it or anything.
I used to watch it on Nick at Night. He got so into this role. He went pure method, fully method. There's a documentary about him doing this role, where at one point he forgot who he was. When he was done with the role, he didn't know who Jim Carrey was anymore. He only knew Andy Kaufman, right? And that's a tough thing to do on your psyche, I think. And I think that's where some of his depression kind of came from.
Right.
Have you seen Truman Show?
Yes, I've seen Truman Show.
Fantastic movie. I think Jim Carrey's a really talented actor. You know, someone said he's one of the best actors to not be nominated for an Academy Award. I think it's absolutely true. But, I don't know, he's a tough sell, I think.
He's a huge anti-vaxxer.
Yeah, he's kind of a hippy-dippy anti-vaxxer. And that's where I kind of draw the line. Because between him and his ex-wife, Jenny McCarthy, they kind of started the anti-vax movement. Anti-vaxxing wasn't a thing, really, before Jenny McCarthy went on social media and convinced a bunch of moms, like, hey, what are you giving your kids? What are you letting the government
influence
put into your kid? And does it cause autism? And that's kind of where all this started from. And now anti-vaxxing is a big problem.
And now no matter what scientists say, people don't believe them.
Exactly. Also, there's a big vaccine coming out soon for COVID, and a lot of people don't want to get it. And I feel like a lot of that comes from this, right? And that's, I think, where I draw the line. Now, they've since split up, and it's hard to tell what his views on vaccinations are now.
Right.
Because he hasn't said anything about it in the last 5 years.
He doesn't really have a reason to.
No, but also, if you're doing that, fuck you, man. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you making the world a more dangerous place to live?
Well, if you personally don't want to get said vaccine, tough sell, but like, okay, but don't encourage many other people to not do it.
No, you're well within your rights to do whatever you want.
Right.
But no, like you said, like, it's proven science. It's been proven science for over 100 years. Why is this an issue right now? Again, it's partially because of Jim Carrey and Jenny McCarthy.
Yeah. Oh, this episode might be more political than we wanted it to be.
Look, people, if you're gonna complain this is political, I'm at 15% right now. Okay? This is the easy stuff. But back to Kick-Ass, it was put in an uncomfortable situation, I think, with Jim Carrey,
right,
with the shootings. And we're on keep or cancel. So Jim Carrey, I am kind of on the line here. If he would stop being so anti-vax, that'd be fantastic for me. Keep him. I like all the work he's in. I want to see more Jim Carrey. I want to see him age into some older roles. I want him to win an award for acting. They're not giving the award for his personal beliefs.
Right.
So I'm on the keep him.
Okay.
For now.
For now. We'll see what happens.
We're gonna come back to Jim Carrey in a couple weeks, so we'll see where we feel then. But so final thoughts. How do you feel about this movie?
I love it. It's
love?
I love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's love.
I like it. I thought it was pretty good. I like the decisions they made. I thought they subverted expectations very well. I like what they're doing with the themes. Like I said, it's hard to deconstruct this concept twice in a row. At the very least, they evolved the themes.
And they did it in a competent way.
Parents and about respecting your parents and how the responsibility is also on the kid, not just the parent, for this to work, right? I like all that stuff. The movie's entertaining. It took me places I didn't think it was going to go. So I quite enjoyed it. For me, it does not go in the Phantom Zone.
Oh, absolutely not. No, we're saving this one.
I like it. And this is one of those things, maybe don't listen to Rotten Tomatoes all the time.
This is one of the movies where I think the critics were dead wrong.
I think it was wrong. The box office, which it did okay, by the way, $20 million.
This was still a pretty low budget movie, and it made, I think, 60
million. So it probably made some money after marketing.
Clearly not enough to where a sequel was like a surefire thing.
Again, a lot of things hurt it, but at the end of the day, I like this movie. I would love to see more Kick-Ass. Yeah. I hate that we're not going to get any more.
Yeah, it's a damn shame.
Yeah, it's a shame. So what movie are we doing next week?
Wonder Woman from 1974.
1974 Wonder Woman. We're getting into the TV movie realm at this point. So this is a TV pilot, but back then TV pilots were made into full movies.
Don't confuse this with Wonder Woman 1984, which is...
Yes. Which is the one that's coming out now on Christmas. Also, Wonder Woman with Linda Carter from 1975. This is not that either. This is
not that one either.
This is a previous Wonder Woman. It's available on Amazon to rent.
Was it like $4?
It was like $3 or something.
Or $4.
Honestly, I didn't hate it. But it was worth the rental is all I'm saying.
I don't know if it was worth it.
Look, we'll get to it next week. But if you want to follow along, I would recommend renting it and watching it if you're into old shit. But I think we're going to have a good time with that episode. So thank you for listening. Thanks to That Piano Dude for our musical intro. I love hearing it every time. Make sure you leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you're listening to this. Make sure you tell a friend. That also helps a lot too.
That's probably what will help us out the most right now, is just telling friends about this.
Yeah. Look, I don't need a million people to listen to this. It's nice to see that people are listening to the things that we're doing. That's all.
Well, we have a lot to say.
Yeah, sure.
We'd like people to hear it.
For sure. We're on Instagram at Films from the Phantom Zone. We're on Twitter at Films from PZ. You can go on there. You can argue with us. I love arguing with people.
Give us your hot takes. We'll give you ours.
Hot takes all around. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. You got anything to add?
No, that's all. See you guys.
All right, sweet. Bye.